So I'm goddamn pretty eye me take though.
Damn, check it out.
I can't deny her though. They my bestie. She's my bestie. That's my bestie. Your pair of eyes had me paralyzed. Toxic nigga, but you made me to a better guy. Smoke, but with you on forever, ever. I can watch you all day, girl, like you televised. You think like this nigga, they ain't never lied. I left the bitches alone, I had to pick a side. Look in your eyes, girl, you were hypnotized. Of course, it was your breasts, hips, and them damn thighs. Close my eyes, I'm still mesmerized. Get mad at my bestie, I tried. That's my bestie, my pretty.
I heard she's the one, she's got it going on. That's my pretty ass baby. Yeah, yeah. She don't take no mess. My bestie is the best. That's my pretty ass baby. Yeah, yeah. I heard she's the one, she's got it going on. That's my pretty ass baby. Yeah, yeah. She don't take no mess. My bestie is the best. That's my pretty ass baby. Yeah, yeah. Oh.
Hey, what's up? So it's day 2 and 3. I'm good. How are you? Are you almost ready for the draft? I am. I miss football. But I do true crime when or trials when courts, when football's not on. But we got the draft here coming up next month. So anyways, but yeah, I'm going to rewatch Karen Read Trial 1 Part 2 and 3 today, or day 2 and 3 today. Yeah. So, but I appreciate you coming in, Ivo. I hope you're doing well. Now I lost my train of thought. But okay, for those that don't know or never heard of her, Karen Read is accused of backing up her SUV 24 miles an hour in a snowstorm, hitting her cop boyfriend, and leaving him dead in the snow. And this case is wild. Okay. All right, so I'm going to get into it. Let's do that. Do this. Do this. Do that. Do this. Do that. Okay. This better be on. Thank you. And we're definitely going to 125 because I'm not watching at normal speed. There ain't no effing way. And press play. Let me find when this mother fudger starts. Okay, there's the only. It's dark. It's dark when we come into light. Right there. Okay. We have come into the light. Oh, man. How dare you move it back up to the only fan. Come on. Okay. Oh, whoops. Come on. There we go.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All parties having anything to do before the honorable court of justice. Doubly to know.
Hear
Now
ye,
sitting
hear
in the
ye,
General
hear
Superior
ye.
Court within the Full
Shove it
County
up
of
your ass.
Norfolk. Drawn near.
Whoops, no! Get me back where I wanted to be! You freaking jerk face. Why'd you do that? No, not. No! Oh my gosh. You're going to irritate me to no end. Why won't you go over here? Then how about up there? Okay.
All parties having anything to do before the honorable court of justice. Doubly to know. Now sitting in the General Superior Court within the Full County. Drawn near to your defendant, you shall be heard.
Hey! Yes, no one said that correctly. Yes.
Commonwealth versus Karen Read, 22117.
Okay, good morning again, counsel. Good morning, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. I appreciate you today. Everyone, I'm sure, a lot longer than we all anticipated, but we thank you for being here. I do have to ask you those same three questions.
Let me guess, it was snowing.
Follow the instruction and refrain from discussing this case with anyone yesterday. Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instruction and refrain from doing independent research or investigation into this case since we left yesterday? Yes. Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, read anything about this case since we left yesterday? No. Everyone said no or shook their heads. All right, thank you very much. Could we have Officer Saraf, please?
Oh, hold on. Let me pause this for a second while King Ivo's in here. Hey, King Ivo, I hope you enjoy D-Hop. I heard he signed with you guys. But anyways, okay, let me go back.
Morning.
Morning, Honor. John, mind you're still under oath.
Yes, sure. All right, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Officer Sheriff. Good morning. Is there anything that you would like to change or amend or modify about your testimony yesterday that you thought about overnight?
No.
Let's get
Did you
to it.
discuss your testimony with any person between the time you got off the stand yesterday and coming back to the courtroom?
No.
Officer Sheriff, I want to ask you a question about, or a couple of questions about something called a dispatch log. You know what a dispatch log is?
Yes.
What is a dispatch log? Can you describe for the jurors?
Just notes saying what time calls come in and sometimes a short synopsis of what happened on the call.
It's an official document generated by the Canton Police Department, correct?
That's correct.
And it's kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
It's created at or near the time of the event that it's recording?
Yes.
And it's supposed to be accurate?
Right. Yes.
Okay. And in fact, what it has is the dispatch details of the event that's in question. Whatever officers show up, what time they show up, the order in which they show up, the location to which they're dispatched, things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
Statement from yesterday. Dude's biting his mouth and all sorts of shit. Like, oh, fudge, what did I step into? I fucking love this. Anyway. It's good.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Oop. Are you getting impeached already, sir? Damn.
No. Is that document? So that's the dispatch log for what day?
The 29th.
Do you see your name somewhere on that dispatch log?
You know, I should start selling eyes in a jar, huh? Get some of those fake blue eyes and just put them in a jar and sell them. You know, I mean, if girls can sell their bathwater, why can't I do that? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
To the right, one of the three officers that was called to the scene.
Yes.
And that looks like the dispatch log for the call out that you were testifying about yesterday. Is that right?
That's correct.
May I approach you?
Yes.
May I publish this as we?
Yes.
Don't start your
Discuss it.
bullshit.
That is really small font. I'm gonna make I approach one more time.
Yes.
It's not an eye contest.
That was not-
I should say. Oh, look at that. The magic of. All right. You can either look up on the screen in front of you. I'll try to look at the one on the screen with my eyes aren't that great either. If you look to the right, there appear to be 3 entries for the dispatch of the officers that were on the scene about which you testified yesterday, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, I can't
And
see
in fact,
that
it has
shit,
this
motherfucker.
dispatch log shows that you and then Officer Mullaney and then Sergeant Good all arrived to 32 Fairview. That's Officer Mullaney arriving first at 6:09:26. You see that?
Yes.
And you see that it also has 3 seconds later at 6:09:29, you arriving. Is that right?
6:29 it says. Excuse me.
Good arriving 4 seconds after you at 6:09:33 seconds, correct?
Sure.
So you, according to the document, by campus, has Mullaney driving all within 7
It
seconds
should
of
have
each
said
other. correct?
officer
Correct.
found
That is
in the
completely false,
snowbank.
isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, you've looked at your dispatch, I'm sorry, your dash cam, correct? And clearly, we saw it yesterday. You arrived and there's nobody else on scene.
Correct.
That was at about, in fact, about 6:10 a.m. that you arrived, correct?
About that, yes.
And then Officer Mullaney actually arrives after you about 6:11 a.m. Is that right?
Yes.
And Sergeant Good does not arrive, according to your own dash cam, until about 6:16, a little after 6:15.
Yep.
All right. So right off the bat, the official Canton Police Department dispatch log, one of the first documents generated in any investigative event, that's completely wrong, right?
The times are, yes.
Well, the times and the orders, right? I mean, not only did Officer Mullaney not arrive first, you arrived first.
That's
Or
right.
didn't he arrive?
Sure.
So that's 2 things that are wrong about just that, correct?
Sure.
And then it has Sergeant Good arriving
Oop!
4 seconds after you, which is also
Fuckery is
incorrect.
afoot.
He didn't arrive until about 6 or 7 minutes after you, right?
Sure.
All right. Have you reviewed this document in the past?
Yes? No.
You've never seen the dispatch log?
No.
Did you ever seek to make sure that the dispatch log that's so important and so vital in an investigation was actually accurate before it was turned over to the defense, for instance?
No, I didn't.
All right. But without that dispatch log, without your dash cam, we would be relying on your dispatch log to be true and accurate. Is that right?
Other than what I'm saying that what happened, correct.
And do you think it's accurate otherwise? Yeah.
Not in order, no. It's not. Not in order, no.
Other than
In
the
time.
order and the time that the officer's responding, is it correct in all other respects in your mind?
Can you rephrase?
Sure.
Say it one more time.
Let's take away the order and the time that the officers responded. Ignore that.
Mhm.
Is the dispatch log otherwise accurate?
Yes.
Take a look at the left-hand column where it's highlighted in green. What's that address?
32
Highlighted in green?
On the screen, it's
I'm
highlighted.
sorry.
I'm like,
I don't have the document.
that's okay. It's 32 Fairview.
Did you arrive to 32 Fairview Road?
No,
You arrived to 34 Fairview Road,
that's correct. Yep.
So that even the location on the dispatch log is faulty. Is that right?
Sure. Yep.
Wow.
May I approach you?
Just
Yes.
fucking up all over the place. It was a clerical error, sir. Clerical. Nothing to see here. But wait, it gets
You
worse.
testified at a grand jury in April of 2022, correct?
I did.
At that grand jury, do you remember telling the grand jurors what address you actually responded to?
The lights, please.
Don't recall. Probably what I said in the grand jury.
Refresh your recollection if you took a quick glance
Sure.
at a copy of your grand jury testimony. May I approach you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Those sirens always go
Also,
off.
Sheriff, I've done you the
when there's
favor of highlighting a page on
fuckery,
page
but
9. Where did you indicate to the grand jurors that you actually
It
arrived?
says 35 Fairview.
I know what it says. I'm asking if it refreshes your recollection that you actually testified under oath that you responded to 35 Fairview Road.
Yes.
And that is incorrect as well, isn't it?
Yes.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Have you reviewed any of the other officers' reports that relate to your dispatch out to the location that you've been testifying to?
No, I did not.
Did you ever review Sergeant Good's report?
No.
Are you aware that have you ever discussed with Sergeant Good that he wrote in his official report that you responded to 32 Fairview Road?
No.
And of course, we just talked about the fact that the dispatch log lists 32 Fairview Road and not 34 Fairview Road, correct?
Correct.
So none of the initial police reports, not the dispatch log, not your police report, apparently not Sergeant Good's, list 34 Fairview Road as the actual location where you
Yeah, and he's already gotten impeached twice now, Kevin. There's some fuckery afoot.
responded that morning, correct?
As far as I know, yes. Yes, sir.
Was there an effort on your part or anybody else's, to your knowledge, to mask the actual address of Brian Albert's house as 34 Fairview Road?
No.
All those were just mistakes,
Yes.
over and over and over.
Yes.
When you made contact with the victim and the women that you described yesterday, did you see any evidence that any of the women had been engaged in life-saving measures?
Yes.
What did you see?
It appeared that Karen Read was doing mouth-to-mouth on John O'Keefe.
You saw, I don't want to get too graphic, but you saw blood on her face?
Yes, I did.
You saw blood on his face?
That's correct.
You saw blood in her hair?
No, I didn't see anything.
You didn't notice that?
No, I didn't notice that.
Okay. But certainly blood on her face from having engaged in some sort of CPR activity?
Yes.
She was
Not
the only one
resuscitation, you
really
said?
trying to
It looked
save
like-
his
yeah.
life. Get the
You also
fuck outta
saw
here.
Carrie Roberts seemingly assisting with chest compressions. Is that
Objection?
right?
I'm not asking a question. Just
Sorry?
objection? Just
No,
no question.
no, you can ask it. The question hasn't been asked yet. Finish the question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you also see Carrie
Why
Roberts
are you fucking objecting?
seemingly assisting in
Shut
chest
up.
compressions?
I don't remember who exactly it was, but it appeared that somebody was doing
What about
purchase.
the third woman, Jennifer McCabe?
They were all around the body.
Did you see Jennifer McCabe ever engage with John O'Keefe as he lay on the ground
Nope.
and assist in any life-saving measures? You
Nope.
witnessed that.
I don't recall.
But you do recall my client engaged.
Yes.
Of course you don't recall.
Isn't it true
Trying
that
to
Jennifer
save her
McCabe
out.
pulled you aside while my client and Carrie Roberts stayed with John, providing some narrative to you, correct?
Correct.
While the other two women are trying to save John O'Keefe's life, she's talking to you.
For brief seconds.
Brief seconds?
Yes.
You saw that the dash cam video was those several minutes on the dash cam video where she's standing and having a conversation.
Right, I got there.
Did you ever see Jennifer McCabe do anything physically to help John O'Keefe?
No. I didn't see anything.
Did Jennifer McCabe offer to you during this narrative that she was having, this conversation she was having with you? Did she ever offer the fact that she was standing in front of her sister's house?
No.
Alex is a first responder.
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you apprised at any time while you were out there that the homeowner was a first responder?
Objection.
Sustained.
Why won't you let it get in?
Based on your observations between Karen Read and Jennifer McCabe, which one of those women appeared to be more focused on trying to save John's life in the moment?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Between Karen Read and Jennifer McCabe, which one of those two women, based on your observations, appeared to you to be more focused on physically trying to save John
Karen
O'Keefe's
Read.
life in the moment?
At that point, it was Karen Read.
You would agree with me, Officer Serif, that in any investigation, details matter, accuracy matters, correct?
Sure does.
Reports are written in police investigations in order to memorialize observations, things heard, seen, experienced by the officers, correct?
Yes.
And generally speaking, you're trained to write those reports and memorialize those observations as quickly as possible so that things are fresh in your memory.
Correct.
You don't want to write a report about an incident that you respond to today, 2 years from now.
No.
As a matter of fact, you're trained exactly the opposite. When you respond to a scene, it's somewhat important. You need to get it down on paper as quickly as possible for detail and accuracy, right?
Yes.
You did, in fact, write a report, a supplemental report for this investigation where you laid out your observations of that morning, correct?
That's correct.
These are called incident reports, correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm holding what appears to be a multi-page document that is entitled an incident report. May I approach?
Yeah.
Take a look at the tab page and tell me if you recognize what's on that page.
I'm sorry.
Do you recognize that? All I'm asking is, you
yes.
recognize that as your report?
Yes,
So that would be January 29th,
that's correct.
a little bit later in the morning after you left the scene.
Yes,
And you were reflecting back on what had just happened. You're trying to be as apprehensive as possible.
Yes.
And as thorough as possible.
yes,
You wrote in that report, quote, Karen Read kept screaming, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" She was severely distraught and not able to tell me what happened. Correct?
that's correct.
May I approach?
Yes.
Where
There
is
was no
it?
limit to the amount of words that you could put on the page, correct?
Nope,
Matter of fact, there's a ton of white space. So it's left unutilized, right?
that's correct.
You could have taken as much time as you wanted to in writing this report. Is that right? Right.
Sure.
And it was
No.
And you tried to be as accurate as you possibly could in that moment
Yes,
and put everything down in that report that reflected what you experienced, what you observed, and what you heard that morning, correct?
yes,
On that morning, just hours after the incident or minutes after the incident, was she kept repeating, "Is he dead?" Right?
yes,
You were interviewed by Michael Proctor the next day, weren't you?
I don't know what day it was, but
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at that report?
Sure.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Take a look at that report that's dated March 15, but reflects an interview on January 30, and then tell me if you recognize it.
looks like his report.
Okay, that's that's Trooper Proctor's report of an interview that he did with you, correct?
Yes,
And if you look on the second page, paragraph about what you stated to Trooper Proctor.
that's highlighted? Is
I
that-
highlighted it for you.
Yes,
Okay. Did you tell Trooper Proctor, let me withdraw that, ask it a different way. Were you trying to be as thorough and comprehensive with Trooper Proctor as you were? You wanted to be as truthful and as honest as you possibly could?
Yep.
And as
Did you tell
comprehensive
him
as
that
you possibly
she said that it's her
Yes.
fault?
You told Trooper Proctor the paramedic her friend's vehicle, correct?
correct.
So the only statement that you attributed to my client the day after this incident was those three words, "Is he dead?" that she continually repeated. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Just ask it, Jackson. I know you're going to ask it.
In the two times that you were asked to reflect back on exactly what happened that morning, on January 29th and January 30th, both times you attributed only three words to my client having been repeated continually in her distraught state. Is he dead? Right?
Not
Yes.
it's
She wasn't saying that
my
calmly.
fault.
No,
In fact, you used the word she was severely distraught. Is that right?
that's correct.
When you say severely distraught, we saw part of that on your dash cam. She was emotional,
Yes,
upset,
yes,
focused on John,
yes,
trying to save his life,
yes.
and asking, what was the question that she asked?
Is he dead?
Over and over and over, correct?
Correct.
Ask it, Jackson.
Then you were asked to testify in April of 2022, April 14th of 2022, at a state-run grand jury by the Commonwealth.
Yes,
In fact, Mr. Lally was the fine prosecutor who was asking you the questions, correct?
yes,
Between the time you wrote your report on January 29th and you gave a statement officially on January 30th, between that time and when you testified in April of 2022, do you have any meetings with anybody from the Massachusetts State Police?
no,
Do you have any meetings with Mr. Lally?
no,
Did Mr. Lally put you on the stand without talking to you first?
no. For this trial?
Nope. I'm just, the dates in question are up to April 14th, 2022, the grand jury.
Don't recall.
You don't recall if you met with either Mr. Lally or any of his contemporaries to discuss your potential testimony?
I don't recall meeting with him for that. No, one time I met with him in his office was a couple of weeks ago with this.
In preparation for this testimony?
Correct.
But your testimony now is that he didn't meet with you or you did not connect with him to discuss your testimony before the April grand jury?
I don't recall.
When you did testify in that grand jury, you changed your story, didn't you?
No.
You believe you testified completely consistently at that grand jury as you had in your report?
I testified for what I remember what happened, sir.
I see. Was your memory better in April than it was minutes or hours after the event?
Was it better?
Was it better or worse?
I don't know.
Do you think your memory gets better as time goes on?
Not usually, no.
No. Usually it's the opposite, isn't it?
Yes.
Memories get foggy, they fade.
Yes.
Which is why you write reports the day of the incident, if you can, correct?
Yes.
You remember what you testified to at the grand jury in April of 2022?
The whole thing?
No, sorry, that was a bad question on my part. Just as it relates to statements attributed to my client.
Yes.
What was your exact testimony in April of 2022?
I'd have to look at my.
Would it refresh your recollection if you saw a copy of your
Sure.
grand jury transcript? May I approach?
Yes.
Page 18. Let me know once you
Your statement shouldn't
remember
change if you're
once
telling the
review
truth.
that and tell me if that refreshes your
saying.
recollection.
Yes, it does.
In fact, on April 14th, 2022, months after this event, for the first time, you said, quote, and these are your words, tell me if I get them right. She, this is my fault. I don't know. She said, I can't believe this happened. I mean, she kept asking if he was going to die, if he's dead. And, I just basically said, we're doing the best that we could, end quote.
That's correct.
Wow, that's a lot more than what you just put in your report, sir.
So in April of 2022, for the first time, you attributed the phrase, this is my fault. I can't believe this happened to my client, correct?
That's correct.
But nowhere in your official report did you say that.
That's correct.
And nowhere in your interview with Trooper Proctor the next day did you say that.
That's correct.
Nope.
You think that was a pretty important omission on your part?
It was an oversight.
An oversight.
And
That a woman
Mhm.
whom you made contact with, standing over the body of a fallen police officer, said to you, this is my fault. Dismiss that one. Yes.
Her
I
ass would have been in
remember that.
cuffs the minute. Dude, fuck out of
And
here.
then, of course, you testified yesterday, and your statement changed again, right?
I don't.
Remember what you said yesterday? These yours?
I don't. Word for word.
Wow.
Well, I wrote it down. Let's see if this helps. Yesterday, you said, my client said, quote, it's all my fault. I did this, end quote.
Yes.
Remember that? Is that yes?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't say that at the grand jury.
No.
And you didn't say that to Trooper Proctor.
No, sir.
And you didn't put it in your report.
That's correct.
Dirty. Why would you change your story now?
If you were to testify in another 2 or 3 weeks, you think your statement would just keep evolving?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now I want to shift gears for a second and talk about what Ms. Reed actually said that morning. You said that you reviewed your dash cam video, correct?
Once.
Do you remember when you arrived, one of the first things out of your mouth was the question, what happened?
Yes.
That would be a natural question to
Sure.
ask,
Yep.
right? You assess the scene and assess the situation.
Absolutely.
And you would want to listen closely to what that answer was, correct?
Sure.
Ms. Reed did in fact answer you, didn't she?
I don't recall what you said.
She said, quote, my boyfriend, I left him and he never came home, end quote. Correct?
I don't know. I don't recall.
You agree, we've already agreed, that details matter in any investigation. They
Absolutely.
certainly matter in this investigation.
Dirty.
I'd like you to take a look at what's been pre-marked as Exhibit 26.
Oh yeah, they're gonna put your
This is
words
about
up. I mean, her words up against your words right now. But you probably can't hear it
3:50
because
runtime.
the show
I'm not looking over
blackberries
here.
are
I'm looking
shit.
at the runtime, which is down at the bottom. So if Mr. Bates, you could put this up. Can you pause it? Just to orient everybody, does this appear to be your dash cam?
Yes, sir.
Same dash cam you were looking at yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and play Mr. Bates.
I wonder if I can hear it now that I'm on this. So I had a hard time hearing that in the thing.
Pause it. Officer Seraph, just like it's not an eye exam, it's not a hearing exam either. I'm going to do the best I can to raise the volume. And Officer Seraph, I want to focus your attention, if you wouldn't mind, on 9 seconds after you say what happened. Just count in your head and listen very, very carefully to a woman's voice that responds to what she says. Go ahead. Awesome.
I heard that.
Very, very hard to hear. Have you listened to that before?
No.
Does it appear to you that she said, my boyfriend, I left him and he never came home?
I couldn't understand anything.
I heard it.
Let's replay it one more time.
I heard it. It's really faint. You gotta listen really close.
Turn the volume on one more time right at that moment. Listen for a woman's voice just under. Sorry, I was asking Officer Seraph, please listen.
I'm watching Trials, your worst nightmare. Jeez. I'm staying out the motherfucking way. What you got going on, sir? How are you, bro?
There's a din of noise, obviously, road noise, wind noise, etc. It's your dash cam, the audio from your dash cam. Once you close the door, listen very carefully, about 9 seconds after you say what happened, or a woman's voice, and see if you can make out what that voice says. Sure. Stop.
I heard it.
Did you hear? I left him and he never came home.
I couldn't understand what I was saying.
You couldn't understand that?
No.
You want to hear it one more time?
No.
I don't think
No.
Wow.
Turn the lights on, please.
Now, if my client had said, my boyfriend, I left him and he never came home, would that be something that you would find important to put in your report?
Objection.
Sustained.
How is that an objection?
Let's move to another area of the dash cam video. I want to keep playing it at the 28 minute mark, 28 minute and 27 second mark.
So can I see counsel's sidebar for just a minute, please?
Oh my God, lady, you and your damn sidebar book. He's trying to impeach the witness. Blowed out your booty hole. There we go.
Do you recognize your dash cam video being on the left of the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you looked at Sergeant Good's dash cam video, which is squared up on the right side of the screen?
No.
You never seen it?
No.
Okay. Does it appear to you that these are two different perspectives of the same scene? In other words, you see the car or the SUV on the left side of the screen right here, correct?
Yes, sir.
See that same SUV right there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that appear to be two different perspectives, two different angles?
Yes.
Of basically the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to the individuals to the left of the SUV right here. There's a person wearing a hood with fur on it. Is that Carrie Roberts? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Okay. There appears to be another person with a darker jacket standing just in front of that person with the hood and fur. You see that person?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to focus on the person in the darker jacket.
Sure.
I believe, and the only reason I'm asking you to focus at this point is because I want to try to play this just once and see if you recognize what's depicted in the video.
Sure.
What I expect you may see is this person move out of sight by the SUV. Pay special attention to that portion of the SUV and see if you see that person in a dark jacket pass from right to left in front of that SUV as if they're going to the house. Let's go ahead and play it.
Watching her. Watching her.
Go ahead and pause it. Have you seen the person in the dark jacket leave the view?
Yes.
Did she appear to go behind the SUV?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and play it. Go ahead and stop track. And now I'm going to ask to draw your attention to that car with snow on it. Pay special attention to that car as the film continues to run. Go ahead. Pause.
There's
You
a
see a
person
person
right
standing in front
there.
of the car,
It appears to be a person. Yes.
walking from right to left.
Yes.
Would that be toward the house?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. And also, if you wouldn't mind switching your perspective, now you're looking more at the front of the house. Continue watching the film and see if you see that same person walking toward the house.
There she goes.
Did it stop? Did you see that?
Yep.
No, I didn't see. Oh, yeah. Yes. I saw the shadow. Yes.
Right. Shadow of a person
Yes.
walking toward the front of the house. That was Jennifer McCabe going into the house, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
Was it a person going into the house?
It was a person. Yes.
Did you get
Why
anybody
is she leaving the
permission to
scene?
go into the house?
No, not my own.
Would you think that a witness in a homicide scene, we can go ahead and raise the lights. Thank you. Would you think that a witness at a homicide scene being allowed to go into a house to make contact with other witnesses?
I didn't know it was a homicide scene, sir.
If I could finish my question. Do you think it's appropriate for a witness at a potential homicide scene, an unconscious person scene, whatever crime scene,
Yes.
to make contact with other witnesses and begin discussing the situation unsupervised?
Can you rephrase that question, sir?
Do you think that's an appropriate thing to have happen?
No.
I have no answer for that, sir. I don't know what you're asking.
Officer Seraph, when you go to a crime scene,
Yes, sir.
one of the first things that you'd want to do is secure the scene and separate witnesses so that interviews could be conducted, correct?
Sure.
You wouldn't want witnesses just cavorting together and getting their story straight, right?
Correct.
You'd want to avoid that at all costs,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And why is that?
So they can't collaborate their story.
Yet there was a woman, sorry,
Mhm.
there was a person walking from
Why is
the
she
area where
allowed?
a body was found in the lawn of a house, walking into the house to make contact with other individuals, correct?
It appeared that way, yes, sir.
Oh, man.
Does that seem appropriate to you?
Is this slipped open?
No.
Of course not. We've talked a bit about what you did and didn't hear at the scene from my client. At any point when you were at that location, did you hear my client repeating the phrase, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him?
She said, I hit him? No, I didn't hear that part.
You never heard her whisper it, yell it, say it, or otherwise.
Not that I recall.
If you had heard that statement, you likely would have written it down, wouldn't you?
Yes.
You likely would have reported that to Trooper Proctor the next day, wouldn't you?
Yes.
You likely would have mentioned it in your grand jury testimony, correct?
Yes.
And you did none of those things because you did not hear that statement.
I did not hear that. No.
Nope.
Sir, you were at 34 Fairview for more than an hour before you cleared the scene, right?
Yes, sir.
You were at the location of the body of John O'Keefe.
Yes.
In other words, you just didn't stay in your cruiser. You walked out to where John O'Keefe was.
No, I was in my cruiser at different times.
Must have been a bad question.
Okay.
You didn't just stay in your cruiser. At points, you got out of your cruiser, walked over, made contact with the women, and you were standing next to the body.
Yes.
And you were obviously looking around. You noticed some footprints,
Yes.
and you even noticed some lack of footprints.
That's correct.
So you were being observant at the area of the body
Yes.
and the area adjacent to the body.
Yes.
You were looking for anything that might have been out of place,
Yes.
anything of any evidentiary value, correct?
Yes.
No.
You never
weren't
saw
doing
or
this
otherwise
shit.
observed or located a single piece of taillight material, did you?
No.
You certainly didn't see 45 pieces of broken plastic or taillight material, did you?
Nope.
No.
You never located or otherwise observed John O'Keefe's missing shoe
Nope.
or any other clothing of his.
I didn't. No.
Nope.
Officer Sharaf, did you ever think to look inside the house
No.
for that missing shoe?
No.
That never crossed your mind?
No.
Think that might have been a smart thing to do at the time?
Objection, Your Honor.
Rephrase the question.
Sure. Do you think that would have been appropriate protocol when dealing with a body laying on a lawn that is partially unclothed to look inside the house of the lawn?
No.
You didn't think that would have been appropriate protocol?
No.
For you or anybody else?
What
No.
the fuck? Wait, whoa, whoa,
Obviously, you
whoa.
did not conduct a
Hold
search of that house.
Oh, wait. Did he just say no? You know, if that was anybody's civilian household, you would have been in that motherfucking house searching high and low. Don't you try to tell me no motherfucking bullshit, dude. Wow. God, thank God I don't live in freaking Massachusetts. Fuck all this.
House, did you?
Nope.
And you're aware that to this day, no law enforcement officer ever conducted a search of that house?
I'm not aware of that.
Bad cop.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything, Mr. Lally?
Briefly, Your Honor.
Okay.
Oh, he's gonna be. Oh, gonna be 500 years.
You were shown
Oh,
a dispatch log, is that correct?
That's correct.
dude, I'm-
And dispatch log is how and who creates that?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of how that document sort of comes in?
Call comes in, an officer is at the desk, and usually the first thing they would do is dispatch, get people going to the scene, and get everybody rolling as far as if they need FD, police, whatever resources they need, and basically then type in what the call is and who's going.
So fair to say it's more important to get assets allocated to a scene, especially in the case of an emergency, which is why someone's calling 911, than to ensure that the dispatch time is correct down to the second.
Absolutely.
Now, you were asked some questions about different things that you heard the defendant say, correct?
That's correct.
And you were shown specifically some grand jury testimony from April of 2022, in which you indicated during that testimony that the defendant stated, "This is my fault."
Yes.
And is that based on your memory of what she said?
Yes.
And you also testified yesterday.
Then why
along
wasn't
the
in
same
your
lines, correct?
report?
What you testified to before this jury, as far as
Why
your memory,
wasn't
is
it in
that
your report?
accurate as to what happened on that scene, January 29th, 2022?
Yes.
Now, prior to this call, did you know Kerry Roberts?
No.
Did you know Karen Read?
No.
Did you know John O'Keefe?
No.
Did you know Jennifer McKay?
No.
Based on what you've seen as far as the dash camera, would you be able to differentiate between Jennifer McCabe or Kerry Roberts from that dash camera footage?
Oh,
No.
but you know other Canton police officers, and
While
you
you're
know
on scene,
Kevin Albert,
did
and you know
see
Brian Albert.
anybody from 34 Fairview
But keep
Road
it up.
from that address come outside?
No.
Did you see anybody from any address on that entire street for the entire 90 minutes that you were there come outside?
No.
Now, you were asked some questions about some different addresses on Fairview, whether they be 32 or 35. Do you know where either 32 or 35 is located in relation to 34?
It will be next to each other, sequential order.
Nothing further.
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, you're all set, officer. Thank you.
Thank
you. Yeah. Mr. Lally, who is your next witness?
You're on the call with the call officer, Stephen Miller, to the stand.
Stephen Mulaney.
Oh, that's who that is. I was wondering who it was. Sergeant Good is a good one.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case now hearing should be truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You can stand or sit, sir, whatever is more comfortable. Just make sure you speak into the microphone, please. Hey, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name, please?
Stephen Mullaney, Mullaney.
And
And
how are you employed, sir?
I am employed by the Canton Police Department as a patrolman
How long have you been a patrolman for the Canton Police?
since July 2020 and a full-time officer since August 2021.
And if I could call your attention to the evening of January 28th, 2022 into the morning of January 29th, 2022. Were you working on that occasion?
Yes, I was working the 11:45 p.m. to 7:45 a.m. patrol shift.
And were you dispatched to a call shortly
You okay,
after
baby?
6 a.m. on the 29th?
Yes, I was.
And where were you dispatched to and what was that in regards?
34 Fairview Road
Hey,
for
Lucia.
a unresponsive party.
Now, if I could turn back just for a second, as far as when you're assigned as far as a patrolman with Canton Police, are there different sort of geographic sectors within the town to which you're assigned?
Yep, I was assigned to the east sector.
And it's Fairview Road within that east sector?
It's the west sector.
So you were assigned to the east sector, but dispatched to a call in the west sector. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know why that was?
Yes, east. The east sector backs up the west sector.
You're
Prior to
calling
this,
damn
on
sirens.
28th, going into the 29th, were you
Why don't you hold on a minute for that? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Lally.
Oh, thank you. So on the 28th, going into the 29th, what, if any, awareness did you have as far as the weather forecast or sort of what was predicted as coming?
I believe around midnight it began to snow.
And that's why you're on shift, is that correct?
Yes.
When you're on shift and you're on patrol, particularly when there's a weather situation as far as snow or something like that, what is it that you're doing on patrol?
Well, I stayed in the parking lot that shift, so didn't get stuck anywhere.
And as far as the snow that was predicted and the snow that fell, how much precipitation, what kind of a storm was it?
Well, by the morning it was pretty heavy snow.
And by the morning, by what time?
About around 6 a.m.
So by the time that you were dispatched to that call, we were just talking about the snow was picking up and getting heavy.
Yes.
And as you were, so you were at the station when you received the dispatch, is that correct?
Correct.
Still
Yes.
here. I'm just going off camera.
Where is, well, about how far away is Fairview Road from where you were at the station?
Mile and a half, 2 miles.
And can you describe to the jury sort of the route that you took going from the station to Fairview Road? That
Yep.
way?
I took a right onto Washington Street from the station, and then I took a right onto Dedham Street from Washington Street, a left onto Cedar Crest from Dedham, and then a left onto Fairview Road from Cedar Crest.
And so Fairview Road runs sort of between two other more major roads again, fair to say?
Yes.
And you mentioned Cedar Crest, is that correct?
Yes.
And Cedar Crest is off of Dedham?
Correct.
And so what is the other sort of major road on the other sort of intersecting side of Fairview Road?
Chapman Street.
So when you're coming from Cedar Crest onto Fairview, about how far into Fairview is 34?
2 houses down on the right.
So the house would have been on your right, is that correct?
Correct.
And in addition to yourself, who, if anyone else from your department was dispatched to this call as well?
Officer Saraf.
And who, if anyone, arrived first?
Officer Saraf had arrived prior to my arrival.
And Officer Saraf, as far as which direction was his cruiser facing? The same as yours, directly at yours, or something else?
I don't recall.
You recall seeing Officer Saraf during your en route time, sort of between the station and arriving on the scene?
I do not know.
Now, as far as when you're driving from the station to the scene, what, if anything, do you recall about sort of the road conditions, visibility, anything like that?
Visibility was difficult. I don't exactly recall how far you could see, but it was definitely coming down.
And at this point in time, on January 29th, just after 6 a.m., what is sort of the lighting conditions? Has the sun come up yet? Is it dark out, or what's going on?
It was still dark out.
And if you recall, what was sort of the vehicular traffic on the roadway between the station and your arrival on Fairview Road?
I don't recall there being any traffic.
Now, as far as when you are coming to the scene, do you recall whether or not you had to activate sort of your lights or your sirens or anything like that?
I believe I would have used the blue lights.
You recall using sirens?
I do not recall whether or not I used sirens.
And if you know, about how much time elapsed between the time that you received the call and the time that you arrive on Fairview?
3 minutes, approximately.
And when you arrived there, what, if anything, is sort of the first thing that you see?
I saw Officer Saraf towards like the front lawn, kind of surrounding the victim. There's a couple other people as well. And the fire department was on arrival right about the same time.
And so beyond yourself and Officer Sarah from the Canton Police, were there other sort of town assets that were dispatched to this call as well?
The fire department.
And when you say the fire department, how many sort of vehicles or what was their response as far as?
I believe they had a fire engine and ambulance.
And do you recall if the fire engine and the ambulance came from sort of the same side as you from Cedar Crest, or did they come into the scene from from the opposite side as far as from?
I think they had come down Chapman Street to Fairview, and they were facing towards Cedar Crest.
Now, so you arrived there, you see Officer Saraf and people from the fire department, correct?
Yes.
And you indicated that you saw a person on person on the ground. Is that correct?
Yes.
And just for clarity purposes, at some point subsequent to this, you were able to identify the person that was on the ground. Is that correct?
Yes.
That was John O'Keefe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where the other people that you indicated were there, where were they in relation to John O'Keefe?
I think I don't really recall where everybody was upon my arrival, but I think everyone was kind of like in the vicinity around the curb to the street.
Now, as far as when you're first arriving, you're pulling up to the scene, were you able to see Mr. O'Keefe on the ground at that point, or
I had to get? I saw people around him, but I had to get closer before I saw the victim on the ground.
And so the other people that you saw around him, were they kneeling down, standing up, or something else?
I believe Officer Saraf was still standing up. I don't recall anyone else.
And so fair to say you saw Officer Saraf standing up near Mr. O'Keefe before you actually saw Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Now, this particular area where you saw Officer Saraf standing up and Mr. O'Keefe or Officer O'Keefe on the ground, what, if any, sort of additional ambient lighting did you observe in that area? Was there any street lights or anything like that around there?
Not that I recall.
Now, in addition to Officer Saraf, at some point did you encounter some other individuals or civilian people on scene?
Yep. Miss Jen McCabe.
And in addition to Ms. McCabe, were there any other female parties there as well?
Yeah. Carrie Roberts.
And in addition to Ms. Roberts, was there any other female parties there?
Yes. Ms. Reed.
And just to be clear, do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And could you identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing she's wearing?
Black dress.
That's a record reflect identification of the defendant.
Yes.
Now, prior to this call, did you have any prior sort of familiarity with Karen Read?
No.
With John O'Keefe?
No.
With Jennifer McCabe?
No.
With Carrie Roberts?
No.
And when you arrive and you make those sort of initial observations, where is it that you go? What, if anything, do you do?
The fire department began their life-saving measures, and at one point we were able to get him onto the stretcher or onto a backboard, I believe it's called, and then onto a stretcher.
And what, if any, involvement did you have with that?
I assisted the fire department in placing him on the backboard and then helping get him onto the stretcher.
Now, as far as you mentioned that the where you came and located Mr. O'Keefe, do you recall sort of what position his body was in when you first observed him?
He was lying face up, as was back on the ground.
And do you recall where he was in relation to the roadway, if you could tell?
Yeah, he was on the front lawn. Well, I didn't know exactly where the curb was, but I would think about, approximately 10 feet from the curb.
And so you mentioned that you couldn't tell exactly where the curb was. Why is that?
There was snow on the ground.
So the snow sort of covered the curb at that time that you're there. Is that correct?
Yes.
But you approximated it was about 10 feet into the lawn.
Yeah.
And the snow on the ground that you observed at the time when you first arrived, about how much snow had accumulated on the ground?
I'd say at that point, approximately 6 inches.
And what, if any, snow did you observe on any part of Mr. O'Keefe's body when you first saw him?
There was really no snow, but you could tell that he had been in the conditions. It was almost as if it was like water, kind of like frozen on kind of to his face.
And did you make any observations, or what, if any, observations did you make beyond his face as far as sort of the rest of his body?
I don't recall really any other observations.
Do you recall how he was dressed?
I do not.
Do you recall what, if any, snow was on any other part of his body?
I do not.
Now, as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned, what, if any, observations did you make as far as any injuries to Mr. O'Keefe at that initial time?
I did not recall any injuries.
So nothing stood out to you, is that correct?
No, correct.
And you assist the fire department getting onto a backboard, correct?
Yes.
And where did Mr. O'Keefe go from there?
To the ambulance.
Did you go to the ambulance as well?
Not that I recall, no.
So fire department sort of takes over care of Mr. O'Keefe at that point.
Yes.
So after Mr. O'Keefe is lifted up, when he's lifted up, what, if anything, did you observe as far as the grounds that had been underneath Mr. O'Keefe and where he was?
I didn't recall anything. observe anything. No, no,
You recall even looking sort of in that area?
no. I think he was in front of me, so I wouldn't have seen what was under him.
And so after Mr. O'Keefe is taken by members of the fire department over to the ambulance, what is it that you did?
Officer Saraf, at that point, we were trying to identify the victim, so I spoke to Mr. Cape.
And without sort of anything that Ms. McCabe told you, about how long period of time did you talk to Ms. McCabe gathering information?
Approximately 2 minutes.
And who, if anyone else, did you speak with attempting to gather information regarding Mr. O'Keefe?
Ms. McCabe's the only one I recall speaking to.
Now, as far as the defendant, Ms. Reed, what, if anything, do you recall her sort of doing as you're on scene and as you're going about what you're trying to do?
She was screaming, is that my boyfriend? Is he dead?
And when you say screaming in a fairly loud voice, correct?
Very, very loud, yes.
And as far as that sort of phraseology, as far as is he dead, how many times was that something she said? Once, more than once, or something?
Repeated many times.
And with the same sort of volume that she had said it with, as you described the first time?
Yes.
And as far as, if you know, about how long was the ambulance on scene before it left to go to the hospital?
10 minutes, approximately.
Do you know what hospital it went to?
Good Samaritan.
And after the ambulance left and went to the hospital, where did the three women that you're talking about being defendant, Ms. McCabe, Ms. Roberts, where did they go?
I believe they left the scene.
So did you have any, or what, if any, conversation did you have with any of them following that?
None.
Now, as far as Ms. Reed, the defendant, is concerned, what, if anything, else did you observe as far as her saying or her demeanor or anything like that?
Just the screams and she was very distraught.
Now, at some point, did Ms. Reed sort of stay in one place, or where did Ms. Reed go sort of around the cruisers and the ambulance and all of that?
I believe she went into one of the vehicles. I don't know if it was a cruiser or one of the cars. Stay warm.
And the other two women that were with her, as far as Ms. McCabe, Ms. Roberts, were they in the same general vicinity as the defendant, or were they separated, if you recall?
I don't recall.
Now, at some point after they had left the scene, what, if anything, were you advised by your dispatch in regard to Ms. Reed?
We were dispatched that, or Can't Control had advised us that she's making suicidal statements.
And so based on that, what, if anything, did you or the other officers that you were on scene with do at that point?
I don't recall exactly who, but someone had called Ms. Roberts to have Ms. Reed come back to the scene, and we section 12 there.
And so about how much time elapsed between the time that you learned that from dispatch and the time that Ms. Reed arrived back on scene with Ms. Roberts?
5 minutes, approximately.
Now, you mentioned that there may have been other officers on scene, correct?
Yes.
So in addition to yourself and Officer Saraf, who, if anyone else from your department, arrived on scene while you were there?
Sergeant Good arrived, Sergeant Lank at the time, and Lieutenant Gallagher.
And when was that in relation to when your...
Okay, my question is, when did these supposable self-harm accounts take place? Because you said that she left and you guys had to call her back to section her. And there's conflicting stories. Oh my gosh. Anyways, all right, this case is a mess.
Yourself and Officer Saraf arrived on scene.
Sergeant Good was there shortly after, and then Sergeant Lank shortly after him, and then Lieutenant Gallagher after that.
Until Lieutenant Gallagher arrived on scene.
I would say less than 45 minutes.
And in total, how long was it that you were on scene that morning?
90 minutes to 2 hours.
And during the course of time that you were on scene, at some point, did the sun come up?
Yes.
And during the time that you were on scene, as far as the conditions, and let me ask just a little bit more about that. You indicated something about snow being on the ground and not being able to see the curb, correct?
Yes.
What, if any, sort of other things in addition to that, from a weather perspective? What was the temperature like out at that time?
It was very cold. It was cold.
Could you, or do you have any estimate as far as to how cold?
25, and it was windy.
And when you say windy, could you expound upon that as far as like what kind of wind? Are we talking constant wind, gusts, or something else?
I would say gust to constant.
And fairly
Looks like a
strong
sissy.
winds, light winds, what kind of?
Not necessarily strong, light winds, but it was definitely windy.
And during that sort of total time, about 90 minutes or so that you were on scene, was the weather consistent throughout that entire period that you were on scene?
That I recall, yes.
Now, in the area where you first observed Mr. O'Keefe's body on the lawn, after his body was removed by the fire department, what, if anything, did you observe sort of in that general area?
Nothing.
No tail light pieces. No tail light pieces.
Now, again, you said that Ms. Reed was brought back to the scene or around Fairview Road at the same time by Ms. Roberts, correct?
Correct.
You know where she went from there?
She was transported to Good Samaritan.
Different ambulance than had taken Mr. O'Keefe?
Correct, different ambulance. Yep.
Now, as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned, you assisted getting him onto the backboard, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you also assist getting him onto the stretcher?
Yes.
And beyond sort of the visual observations that you made, did you have occasion to, in that process, have any sort of tactile observations? Did you come into contact with Mr. O'Keefe's body at any point?
No.
Beyond what you've already testified to, did you make any other observations at any point of Mr. O'Keefe, his body, or any injuries?
No, I don't recall.
Sir, I'm going to direct your attention up to the screen over here. Ms. Gilman, if you could just put up Exhibit 25 and just sort of pause it as soon as it comes up. So, Officer Mulaney, I'm directing your attention to the screen, what's been marked as Exhibit 25. Generally speaking,
Kevin, it was still snowing.
what's depicted up on the screen here, is that consistent with what you recall as far as the conditions when you were responding to Fairview Road that morning?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could ask for exhibit number 3. Yes. I'm sorry, exhibit number 9. That's and Officer Mulaney, directing your attention to what's up on the screen, has been previously marked as exhibit number 9. Do you
See, with all the
what's depicted in that
snow, it
photograph?
makes it
Yes.
look
What do
big,
you
but
recognize?
it's a small,
That's 34.
small
Fairview.
freaking.
Is that
It's a small
how it's
I
depicted
mean,
in that
small,
photograph? Is that a relatively fair and accurate portrayal of what you
yard.
observed of the residents on the morning of January 29, 2022?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I
It's
could
not as
have
big
exhibit
as that
number
other
18.
dude's. As the person that passes away.
And again, Officer Mulaney, what's up on the screen? Do you recognize what's depicted in Exhibit 8?
Yes.
And what do you recognize as?
That's 34 Fairview.
That's sort of a different view, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the residents, if I'm standing on the street and I'm facing the residents, as in the previous photograph, the area of the lawn where you first observed Mr. O'Keefe laying on his back with his face up, would that be to the left of the residents, the right of the residents, or dead center, or something else?
Left.
And what, if anything, did you observe sort of in that general area as far as any sort of landmarks or things that were in that area?
A fire hydrant and a flagpole.
And may I approach the registrar?
Ooh.
Yes.
You're very observant.
So, sir, I'm going to try not to find anybody. This is a laser point. Just we can push that button there. And,
Okay.
So, officer, if I could ask you, using that laser point, if you could direct the jury's attention to where in that photograph, if anywhere, you recall Mr. O'Keefe's body being located when you first.
Right in this area.
Thanks. If I may have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Can't even see that
And Officer,
shit.
thank you, sir.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Right. Cross examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Damn, is this a fucking big one or what? How long he on the stand for?
Good morning, officer.
Good morning.
So they go to break?
No.
Is it fair to say that when you were dispatched to 34 Fairview,
Road on January 29th of 2020. You're a part-time officer. When did you start at the Kent Police Department?
July 2020.
Part-time officer. Oh, I see. Understood testimony. You actually became full-time in August of 20.
Sorry, yeah.
You full-time for 6 weeks this fall. And it's fair to say that you were the junior officer on scene.
Yes, it is.
Come on, United.
You testified that you approached Fairview from the Cedar Crest side, correct?
Yes.
34 Fairview Road is much closer to the Cedar Crest side than it is to the Chapman side, correct? And when you take a left on Cedar Crest to enter Fairview Road, 34 Fairview is the second house on the right. Does that make sense?
From Cedar Crest, yes.
Yes. And you were quickly surmising that whatever action was taking place there was taking place on the front lawn of 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the first things that you saw was there appeared to be a woman giving CPR to somebody on the ground.
Yeah, yes.
You didn't know who that woman was at the time, correct?
No, sir.
But you later learned her identity.
Yes, I don't recall which female it was that was giving CPR though.
Okay. So you don't recall that it was Karen Read who was giving CPR to John O'Keefe?
I don't know who it was.
At some point in time, you came in contact with Karen Read, correct, while you were on scene?
Not direct contact, but I was on scene when she was there.
I mean, you were there until about 8 a.m., correct?
Yeah, yes.
And you were dispatched shortly after 6 a.m., correct?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You were there for approximately 2 hours, correct?
Yes.
You were there when Karen Read was there when you showed up, correct?
Yes.
She left and she came back to the scene, correct?
Yes.
And you were there when she came back, correct?
Yes, sir.
So with regard to your contact with her, she certainly was within eyeshot, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you actually at some points were closer to her than you are to me right now, correct?
Yeah.
How close did you get to her?
10 feet.
All right. With the court's permission, I'd like to walk toward you and have you stop me when I'm at the point when you were at your closest to Karen Read. What can I do that, Your Honor?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Like right there.
Okay. And when you were this close to her, and you're estimating this to be about 10 feet, correct?
Sure.
When you were this close to her, was there anything blocking your view of her face?
Not that I recall.
All right. You noticed, obviously, that she had blood on her face, correct?
I did not notice that, no.
Wow.
You didn't notice that she had blood in her hair.
I did not notice that.
You got blood?
You did
bad
notice
eyesight or what?
that she was absolutely hysterical.
Yes.
She was completely distraught.
Yes.
She appeared to be in shock.
Yes.
And there was a contrast between that demeanor that you observed with regard to Karen Read and the demeanor of one of the other women on scene, Jennifer McCabe. Was there not?
Can you kind of explain further?
Sure. Karen Read was screaming, correct?
Yes.
She was yelling, correct?
Yes.
She was hysterical and distraught, correct?
Yes.
Jennifer McCabe was not.
Correct.
And you actually had more contact, direct contact with Jennifer McCabe that morning, correct?
Yes.
And you spoke to Jennifer McCabe for a good 2 minutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Face to face.
Yes, sir.
You were closer to Jennifer McCabe than you ever got to Karen Read, correct?
Yes.
You were able to observe her demeanor.
Yes.
You were able to hear her tone of voice.
Yes.
You were able to hear how loudly she was speaking, correct?
Yes.
You were able to hear how quickly she was speaking.
Yes.
During those 2 minutes that you were face to face closer to Jennifer McCabe, she was not screaming, correct?
Correct.
She was not yelling.
Correct.
She was not hysterical.
Correct.
She was not distraught.
Yes.
She was calm.
Correct.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow it, but let's move on.
Jennifer McCabe didn't have any blood on her face, correct?
No.
And you didn't see any blood in Jennifer McCabe's hair, correct?
No.
Now, with regard to what you heard Karen Read scream that morning, I just want to make sure I get your testimony correct. I believe on direct examination, you stated that she kept repeating two phrases, one being, "Is he dead?" and the second being, "That's my boyfriend," correct?
Yes.
And how many times do you think that she repeated those two phrases?
It's quite a bit, more than 10.
Okay, like almost too many times to count, really.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And each time she said, "Is he dead?" What was her tone of voice?
Screaming very loudly.
Each time she said, "Is that my boyfriend?" What was her tone of voice?
Same.
And you got there not long after Officer Saraf, correct?
Correct.
In any of during the time that you were on scene and you heard Karen Read screaming and yelling in this distraught and hysterical manner, you never once heard her say, "I did it," correct?
I did not.
You never once heard her say, "It's my fault," correct?
I did not.
You never once heard her say, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him," correct?
I did not.
If you had heard any of those statements, you would have recognized that those would have been important to note, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you would have noted those in your police report, obviously, correct?
Yes.
Because you know that when you are drafting a police report, you want to include all the important details, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you want to be precise and accurate, correct?
Yes.
And so you didn't put those statements in your report because you never heard those statements come out of Karen Read's mouth.
Yes, sir.
Now, while you were on scene, at some point in time, you were asked to participate in a search for evidence on that front lawn, were you not?
I was standing by. I didn't directly search for anything that I recall.
All right, and when you say you were standing by the area where John O'Keefe's body had been,
Yes.
correct? And how close were you to that area?
I was like right off the curb at that point on the street.
How many feet from where the body had been?
10 to 12 feet. 15
Okay, so maybe about the same distance as when I walked toward you, around that distance?
feet. Yeah. Yes, sir.
And how much time did you spend around that distance from where John O'Keefe's body had been?
I don't recall.
You were there for 2 hours, correct?
Yes.
So is it fair to say that you were sort of in and around that area multiple times during that 2 hours?
Yes.
Did you ever see anybody put up any crime scene tape at all?
I don't recall that.
You recall other officers sort of circling near that area. You were certainly paying attention to it, correct?
Yes.
Did you see officers use any equipment to clear some of the snow in that area?
Yes, sir.
What did you see?
There was a leaf blower.
Where did that leaf blower come from?
I don't know.
Who had the leaf blower?
I believe it was Lieutenant Gallagher.
I knew the leaf blower was coming up. I didn't know when, though. I wasn't prepared. A leaf blower in snow. Yeah, who'd have thunk it? Okay, that only works like if you're not looking for evidence, but okay.
When did Lieutenant Gallagher arrive on scene?
45 minutes after I did, approximately. I don't recall the exact time.
And how big was that leaf blower?
Not too big. It
Was it handheld or was it something that you pushed?
Handheld.
I wasn't ready for
Who
it.
used the leaf blower?
Shush.
Lieutenant Gallagher.
At what area or on what area did he use that leaf blower?
The front lawn.
And would that have been what was going on or participating in the search for what was going on?
I don't necessarily recall where everybody was, but I believe it would be Sergeant Lank and Sergeant Good.
And they were superior officers, correct?
Correct.
And you understood that these brother officers of yours were looking for evidence, right?
Yes.
They were looking for clues about potentially what had happened to John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
And you were paying attention too as they were doing their work, correct?
Yes.
You were looking for anything that might have been out of place, correct?
Yes.
If there was something large there that didn't appear to, be appropriate for a front lawn, you would have made note of that, correct?
Yes.
And if there was something small there, you would have still made note of that if it didn't appear to belong on a front lawn, correct?
Yes.
At any point in time, either before or after the leaf blower was taken out by Lieutenant Gallagher, did you see 45 pieces of bright red, black, and clear plastic pieces scattered all over the scene?
I did not.
Nope.
Did you find
No
even
gel-like
or see
pieces.
even one piece of broken plastic?
Nope.
I did not.
Meow.
Now, when you came to the scene, John O'Keefe was still lying on the ground, correct?
Yes.
Did you see whether or not there were any blankets on scene?
No.
Want to see my pussy? Here it is. Isn't it
Did you
beautiful?
know that one of the women on scene had a sister who lived in that very house?
I did not.
When you were speaking with Jennifer McCabe, at any point, did you learn whether she had actually gone into that house at all?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you see Jennifer
That's your
McCabe
say, sir.
approach that house at any point when you were on scene?
No.
Were you alerted at any point by anyone that she went into that house while you were on scene?
No.
Well, she did. I
Did you
seen
ever
it on
see
the
Jennifer McCabe
tape.
come out of that house with blankets or anything else that might comfort John O'Keefe?
No.
What was your state of mind regarding whether there were any first responders in that house?
Wasn't aware of that.
Nobody told you?
No.
You
Man.
testified that at one point you saw Karen Read being escorted into a motor vehicle,
Yes.
and that was one of the women on scene, her motor vehicle?
Yes, it was either that or a cruiser.
All right.
Both kind of the same area.
But you'll agree with me, at no point in time did you see Karen Read and Jennifer McCabe in a vehicle together?
Not that I recall, no.
And at no point in time did you ever hear Karen Read ask Jennifer McCabe to Google anything?
No.
I may have a moment here.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you, officer.
Officer Mulaney, you've been to other scenes in which there is a deceased person on scene, family members or friends around?
Yes.
And of those other scenes, does everybody who's a friend or a family member of the person who is injured or deceased, do they all react the same?
No.
Is every single one of them screaming and yelling different things?
No.
And there are actually 3 women on scene that morning, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there was Jennifer McCabe, there was the defendant, Ms. Reed, and there was Kerry Roberts, correct?
Correct.
And did you see any blood on Ms. Roberts's face or hair?
No.
Okay, was she screaming and yelling things and moving around the scene?
No.
Now, as far as the residence in 34 Fairview Road, did you see anybody go in or come out of that residence during the time that you were on scene?
No.
And as far as any of the other residences on the entire rest of the street, did you see any of the neighbors or anybody else come outside at any point in time?
I did not.
I have nothing further.
Just one question, if I might
Okay.
recross.
Sure.
And I don't mean to be a wise guy, sir, but did any of the other neighbors on the entire street have the body of the officer on their front lawn?
Objection.
No.
Your
All
Honor.
right. So that's sustained. All right. You are all set, sir.
Thank you.
All right, folks. It's 11 o'clock. We'll take our morning recess. 15 minutes.
Close your notebooks. Make sure.
The only fan, the only fan. Come on, man. When is it gonna?
Court's back in session. You may be seated.
Your next witness, please.
Mr. Timothy Nuttall to the stand. Face the clerk.
You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the evidence given to the court and jury in the case now and hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
You can stand or sit, whatever makes you more comfortable, sir.
And just bring that microphone down to you. Thank you.
How's that?
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Timothy Nuttall. Last name is Nuttall, Nuttall.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a firefighter paramedic with the town of Canton.
And how long have you been a firefighter paramedic for the town?
I believe 5 years and coming up on 6.
And prior to working in that capacity with the town of Canton, what, if any, other employment have you had within sort of the same field as far as being a paramedic?
So back up significantly. I got my EMT certification when I was still in high school. Now owned by Brewster Ambulance.
No.
From there, I was employed by Cataldo Ambulance. I worked primarily in the city of Chelsea, and BLS, and eventually none shifts in that city, in that area of the world. From there, I decided I liked it. I decided to enroll in paramedic school. I went to the same school I went for my BLS certification. I stayed in the same area, primarily in Chelsea, and eventually edged my way into Everett a little bit, and worked up there for about 7 years. During that time, I decided to be a enroll and was put Stowe, class 268 in Stowe, and worked for the Situate Fire Department for about 18 months. And then transferred to Canton Fire Department.
You had just spoken about. So when you use the term sort of BLS,
two kind of branches. Still running 911 emergencies, but that was kind of the stepping stone to see if you could do the job, if you like the job, and then you can advance on to ALS, advanced life support, which is the paramedic side of things. That's a broader skill set, many more medications, many more interventions that we can perform in the field.
Now, as far as starting with becoming an EMT, what you mentioned you went to a CMTR. What are the classes like?
So it kind of runs the gambit for emergency medicine. And you start mostly with anatomy and physiology, the human body. Illnesses can progressively advance on to basic interventions that you can do. And then the basic interventions are further progressed. Once you complete
Oh my gosh. That was rude. Just kick me out of here.
with a preceptor, performing those skills, being evaluated, and being watched to make sure you're not causing any harm or going down the wrong treatment pathways. From there, once you complete that, you sit your national paramedic written. I'm a nationally certified paramedic, so I had to sit that written, and then finally a practical examination. And once you pass all that, you're certified to be a paramedic.
And so with respect to both your training as far as becoming an EMT and then your training as far as becoming a paramedic, there's sort of a written portion. And what exactly does that mean within your field?
So a preceptor is a senior paramedic who's been practicing for
it varies for you to make sure that you're not
Okay, I'm
down the
still
wrong,
here.
wrong path in tournament.
Good stuff,
Making sure that your care is
comes-
adequate and not doing any harm. My preceptors that I was with, they were medics in the city who had time from them.
And in your role, post getting your certification in regard to those, have you acted as a preceptor for other sort of younger, less experienced?
Yeah, so I was a field training officer for the Cataldo League, a town of Canton.
And with respect to those certifications, is that sort of like a one-time blessing in perpetuity, or is there a continuing educational recertification process?
Right now for the 10, I did an application writing, and I was selected. So I am currently on my group. I am our field training officer for my group 2.
And my apologies, poor question on my part. That paramedic, as far as your certifications are concerned, is that something that you have to continue? Is there any sort of recertification process, and how often is that?
Oh, I apologize. Okay, yes. So to complete a certain amount of hours per year for your recertification. I actually just recently recertified in March. I can't speak to the exact number of hours, but there's a national component, state component, and a local component, and the trainings are quite in-depth.
How many fire stations are there within town of Canton?
We have 2 fire stations.
Where are they located?
Station 1 is 99 Revere Street, and Station 2 is 7.
Is there a typical kind of schedule or shift schedule that you're working on?
1 24-hour off, 125 consecutive 24s off.
And as far as the 24-hour shift, what time to what time is that one with Can 5?
Yes.
And within both of those station houses, how much sort of apparatus, or how many different sort of vehicles and apparatus do you have in each of those station houses?
For Station 1, staffed with 1 lieutenant, 2 firefighters, and Ambulance 1, who is staffed with two firefighters. We do have a PB waiver, so we will medic ambulance. And for Station 2, it's a very similar setup. It is Engine 4 with 2 firefighters and a lieutenant, and Ambulance 2 as they run out of them, Ladder 1 and Ladder 2 respectively. And the crews from Ambulance 1 or Ambulance 2 will cross-span those ladders as needed.
Now, January 28th into January 29th, sort of Friday into a Saturday. Do you recall 2022? Do you recall those days? Were you working one of those 2 days?
I was scheduled to work the morning of the 29th, I believe.
So you were scheduled to work essentially the morning, 8 a.m. on the 29th until 8 a.m. on the 30th. What, if anything, were you aware of as far as weather that casted or that was reported to come in?
I was aware that there was a significant storm, supposedly. Well, there was a significant storm. I took a peek outside. I live in the city of Brockton. I noticed that the conditions were, it was starting to snow a little bit. We do.
And about what time, which station were you assigned on that?
I was at Station 1, 99 Revere Street. And I was on Ambulance 1 for the day. Due to the inclement weather, several hours early, I showed up to the station around 5:45, 5:50 that morning.
And around the time that you were driving from your home to Station 1 in Canton, were the driving conditions, visibility, anything else?
The snow was starting to accumulate. The roads, I drove through several. The reason I left early, just either to relieve people if they needed to get out before the storm really hit, or
snow removal at the fire station. What, if any, sort of duties and responsibilities do yourself and the other firefighters have to in relation to snow removal around the station?
So we're responsible around the station to keep what we refer to as the apron. So we remove all that, like if they need to get in. So that was one of the primary. The crew was actually outside removing snow when I pulled in to the station that morning.
And it may be pretty self-explanatory, but as far as the apron itself, why is it so necessary that the apron remain clear as far as snow is concerned?
Just to maintain a path for the emergency apparatus to get in and out in a timely manner.
Beyond the weather conditions, whether it be temperature, winds, anything to that effect?
They were approaching blizzard conditions, and it was windy and snowy. So we were approaching blizzard conditions, like I said.
And when you arrived there, did a call come into you?
Yeah, I arrived, as I previously stated, around 5:50. I had put my gear, my firefighting structural gear, out with ambulance 1, just in the event that there was an emergency. And as I was doing that, the emergency tones went off for as in a snowbank at 34 Fairview Road, outside. Unclear any further information. So when that came on, we had one of the paramedics that morning and one of the firefighters who was a relatively new firefighter. I made the decision to step on the ambulance to provide an extra set of hands as one of the more senior paramedics in the station at the time.
And correct me if I'm wrong, when you step onto the ambulance,
You're going off because I came in so early. I was still in civilian clothing. I had a Canton Fire t-shirt on. So I actually donned my
on that ambulance that were going to that call as well. Who were they?
So it was firefighter paramedic Anthony Flamati and firefighter EMT Matt Kelly.
And Mr. Kelly, he was sort of the less experienced one at that time. So you get into the back of the ambulance and start going to the scene. Now, as far as other sort of vehicles or apparatus.
3 and Canton Ambulance 1, due to the severity of the call, depending on how it comes in, the shift commander also added himself just as a senior officer with us. So the final dispatch, I believe, was car 5, engine 3, and ambulance 1.
You know who was on engine 3 and who was in car
5? Car 5 was Captain Robry. Engine 3 was Lieutenant Greg Woodbury.
As far as the ambulance 1, obviously there's somebody driving, there's somebody in the front passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
So who was driving, who was in the front passenger seat?
I don't want to speak out of turn. I honestly can't. Tell you who was driving. I was in the back. I was in the back patient compartment of the ambulance. Because
you're going to what is that you're doing?
My boots and structural firefighting pants on incident. I started prepping the gear that we were going to need off the initial dispatch. Has miscellaneous medical supplies, some IV supplies, and interosseous drill kit, the airway bag, which has just a bottle of oxygen, and then quite a bit of airway management. All of those prepped out and ready to go. So as soon as the ambulance was in park, we could step right out, ascertain what we had, and go from there. We were able to, the entire ambulance crew was able to step out and provide patient care.
As for approximately how much time elapsed between the sound go off and the ambulance so that you arrive on scene up there?
I couldn't give you an accurate estimation of the time. Like I said, I was in the back. I was trying to prep everything and get myself kind of prepped just in terms of appropriate attire.
You step out of the back of the ambulance, is that correct?
Yes.
And as far as the weather conditions where you were on Fairview, what, if any, difference was there between the weather conditions there versus the
Name is Jason Nuttall, not Kyle.
As I previously stated, I remember it was still very dark. In my opinion, it seemed to have picked up since my drive in, and the snow was increased.
And where you go and sort of what is it that you first see when you get up there?
So I stepped out of the ambulance and came around with all 3 bags. I could hear commotion. I could hear some screaming off in the distance. I couldn't really tell you where it was coming from because it was still quite dark. Came around. There was a small huddle of 3 individuals and what appeared to be a human form laying in the snow. So we made our way over to that and went from there.
Observe that inside. Are you sort of turning it, or how are you heading when you come around?
Stop it.
I came out of the ambulance on the passenger side and I took a left.
And you make your way over to the patient on the ground. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as the other people that you observed around the patient, how would you? What, if any, description do you have of those people?
There were 3 individuals. I believe they were the individual in the snow on the ground. I went right to him. I kind of bypassed everybody from there. And
Was the patient.
typically on a call like that, where if somebody's unresponsive on the ground, you typically go directly to the patient and ascertain if they are breathing and if they have signs of life, because that is a time-sensitive matter.
And as far as the individual, not then, but at some point subsequent, did you learn the identity of the person on the ground?
It did. It was,
Officer Mr. O'Keefe's body positioned in relation to the ground when you first approached.
so I found him supine. Laying in the snow. Immediate breathing, no pulse. We immediately performing high quality CPR. I was at the head of the individual, so I grabbed a mask and began ventilating the patient, trying to get some oxygen into him while the others on scene, like I said.
Again, maybe pretty well understood. When you use what exactly?
He was laying
on his back, his head sort of facing up. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when you are responding to a call of this nature, there's you and there's other individuals on the ambulance as well, correct?
Correct.
And is the diagnosis and things of that nature are concerned between you and the other people on the ambulance?
So typically, just to use the scenario of a cardiac arrest with 2 paramedics, it's generally split into the airway individual or the airway monitor and the, lack of a better term, code monitor. The airway individual will be responsible for ventilation and eventually advanced airway plate. The other under cardiac activity. And it is it's, for lack of a better glorified balloon with a mask on it. When you squeeze that bag, that forces air into the airway, so you can ventilate an individual who is no longer breathing on their own.
And as far as obviously with your work with the fire department, there are sort of any given call that's used within those. And turning out when you initially approach where Mr. O'Keefe is, if you know about how far away from, where is he in relation to? Well, let me back up. Okay, so you arrive at this residence at 34 Fairview Road, correct? Yep. Okay. So if I'm standing on the street and I'm facing Fairview Road, is Mr. O'Keefe's body to the left? Did you sort of note or observe sort of in the general area as far as where Mr. O'Keefe was?
In terms of when I got to him?
Yes.
So when I first got to him, we checked for signs of life, and it seemed to be underneath him. It was hard to ascertain, again, because of the conditions. It was still very dark. It was snowing, and it was quite windy. So we were able to check the air. It was a pool of blood.
Now, where Mr. O'Keefe's body was in relation to the roadway, if you know, how far away, where was it in relation to the roadway?
I estimated it at about where the sidewalk met the front lawn of that residence. That's estimation.
Okay, give me a second. Let me see if this other thing will work. Shush. I don't know what's going on. Refresh. Reload. Okay, let's see if this one works. If not, I don't know what I'm going to do. Come on. Pause. Present. Okay, let me know if this crackles or anything.
You have any estimate as far as footage or anything?
I would. I would say about 6-8 feet, perhaps.
Approximately 6 feet. Yeah. So you indicated that. So what are the first things that you're checking as far as when you first patient to this house?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
That's sorry, I understand that term to be based on.
So cardiac arrest is the cessation of a stable cardiac rhythm in terms of life. Typically, it's either asystole, pulseless electrical activity, or VFib or VTAC. Typically, you ascertain that by there's no pulse. You check any of the pulses, the femoral pulse, carotid pulse, or radial pulse. You will find nothing. And when that is found, go to life-saving measures, which is CPR.
And just in reference to one other term used in there, so I say solely, and that term to me based on your
Asystole, to put it as clear as I can, is a flatline. There's no electrical activity in the heart.
And so you're working sort of ahead of Mr. O'Keefe, is that correct?
Correct.
And sort of while he's still on the ground, and what is it that you're specifically sort of doing in reference to nurturing that?
So I was, as we talked about earlier, I had a BVM, bag valve mask. I was ventilating him. So I had the mask on his face, and I was giving him positive pressure breaths with that BVM.
And as you're doing that, what, if anything else, did you observe beyond sort of blood pooling you've already talked about as far as?
It's pissing me off. Okay, I got to go back to the other browser. Hold on. Give me a moment.
I was ventilating him. So I had the mask on his face, and I was giving him pressure breaths with those.
Did you observe beyond sort of the blood pooling you've already talked about as far as any tactile observations you made of Mr. O'Keefe, any visual observations you made of Mr. O'Keefe at that point outside of the ambulance?
He was dressed for the weather. He had several layers on of the elements just because it was.
If I have to go regular speed just for him, I will.
Conditions were suboptimal, and we wanted to get him into an environment with better lighting and some heat so we could further assess if he had any injuries and go from there.
Excuse me, on the end with you. You're doing what if anything?
I believe we put this individual on what we refer to as a scoop stretcher, which is basically a long plastic stretcher that we can roll an individual onto and then just pick him up just for our safety and the safety of the patient. It's just really just a long board that we can pick up and then put onto our ambulance stretcher. So somebody was grabbing the scoop stretcher, somebody else was grabbing the ambulance stretcher, and I believe that was the coordinated effort on their part.
And I apologize for keep going. When you first sort of arrived to Mr. O'Keefe, you mentioned that there were 3 females sort of huddled around. Is that correct?
Correct.
What, if anything, did you observe any of those females doing with respect?
There was it was a scene of heightened emotions. As I stated, when I stepped out of the ambulance, I could hear screaming. I could hear people yelling.
I don't know why.
And it seemed just to be that group was just quite agitated.
Now, at some point, you are able to get him on the scoop stretcher and then over to the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
And when you get to the ambulance, what, if anything, did you note as far as what, if any, difference was there in the lighting in the back of the ambulance versus on the front lawn?
The lighting was significantly better. All of our ambulances have fluorescent lighting in the ceiling of the ambulance, so those were on, and we were able to see that there was some more injuries once we were able to get him out of his winter clothing.
Yeah, because I'm
And
even
so,
on
to that
normal
point, when you sort of
speed.
first get into the back of
and
the
it's
ambulance, what is sort of the
still
protocol? What is
fucking up.
sort of the
I noticed
what
that
is it
too
that
when
each
I
of
went
you are
out to
sort of
smoke.
doing with respect to patient
I said,
care?
this motherfucker
So the
keeps
biggest
on breaking up. So we'll just go
priority
normal speed
is
until,
continuous high quality CPR,
until we,
and that is the
get
biggest thing
five, I
with
guess.
any cardiac arrest is uninterruption of counts. Multiple people were performing CPR, and eventually a mechanical CPR device was applied.
Let me go to the
Those pressures were interrupted, and others were removing clothing,
'cause that's where it
removing.
starts getting good.
I honestly couldn't tell you. And a sweatshirt were removed, and then eventually he was.
Just because
I have no questions for this witness at this time.
All right, cross examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Here we go. This is when it. Yeah, did you see this now? I did too. I don't. It's just the way he's talking, like the computer doesn't
Afternoon,
like.
firefighter Nato.
Sir, how are you?
You were coming up. I want to make sure I get the time right.
I need to
Coming
find a
off of
better.
nearly a 24-hour shift when you got the call.
No, sir. I was reporting.
I need to find a better freaking what do you call it? A better I'm drawing a blank. I need to find a better shit. I can't think. Anyways, okay. Never mind.
Reporting for duty that morning.
Just starting the shift when you got the call. Understood.
Oh, a browser. I need to find a better browser. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I want to ask one quick question that you mentioned just a couple of seconds ago under questioning by Mr. Lally. With regard to the clothing, the normal protocol for clothing that's removed from a patient.
Yes.
You said it's oftentimes just sort of discarded onto the floor.
In terms of in the ambulance or at the hospital?
Either one.
Yes.
Okay. Both?
So typically, when we remove clothing in the back of the ambulance, it's generally done with trauma shears. So we will expose and then kind of fold over. That clothing is then usually left in place. We'll do a quick roll just to check the back of the patient, and then he's usually rolled back if there's nothing found, and it's typically left there. In terms of like big puffy jackets, if you cut a puffy jacket, it just makes quite the mess.
What resolution?
Yeah, exactly. It's a disaster. So typically those bigger jackets are just removed, and that is when we removed that type of article of clothing, that's when we noticed that his hands were quite rigid.
So that's what happened in this
Well,
case.
he's slowed down now,
Big
for
heavy
one.
jacket, discarded it, got it away from the body so you could better assess the injuries.
Correct.
And it was only then, after you removed this big heavy winter coat,
But I'll go
that you
faster
could assess
next
that his
time.
hands were stiff
I'll go
and cold.
fast after he's over.
We noted the hands, but it came more into light, if you will, when we removed that coat.
Got it. And you have as good a memory about that as you do the rest of the
I mean,
scene.
he's
that
got
morning.
In terms of removing the article of clothing?
Correct.
I did not remove any article of clothing. I was
Having the big jacket. on.
correct.
It's messing up. Let me
And you
know.
remembered that
Kevin.
as well as you remember the other specifics of the incident.
Yes.
Dovetail on the same subject, but just come at it a little bit different way, if you indulge me. when responding to a scene, one of your jobs has to be to sort of immediately take note of and assess. Be very different than a drowning.
Exactly.
Someone in this case exposed in a snowbank, you're going to deal with or assess and note the weather.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
You're also going to note and assess the condition of the patient.
Correct.
As it pertains to the weather.
Yes.
So someone, for instance, that's in a snowbank naked,
Mhm.
no clothes on at all, is going to be a little bit different assessment than someone who's completely dressed for winter. Correct.
The initial assessment with every patient is going to be automatically circulation, airway, breathing.
Understood.
We approached this individual the exact same way. Is automatically went directly to cardiac. Make sure.
I guess what I'm asking is your attention is focused on some of those details for sure.
Correct.
That big heavy coat that he was wearing, correct?
I remember he was appropriately dressed. Correct.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you testified to that in the grand jury that, quote unquote, he had a heavy coat on.
Yes.
Consistent with how you're testifying today. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Your Honor, I'd like to mark 2 photographs as next in order. Not yet been marked. I believe it would be 160.
It doesn't matter. Show the prosecutor the photos.
161 and 162 in order. May I approach?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you, first of all, whether you recognize what you did.
Honestly, sir, I couldn't recall the exact, but yeah.
You do recognize them?
Yes.
Does that appear to be what John O'Keefe was wearing when you found him?
I don't recall, sir, to be perfectly honest.
May I approach him?
Yes.
Do you remember cutting this off of John O'Keefe at the time?
I remember the clothing being removed.
Okay. But you don't remember?
I could say that he had clothing removed, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it was.
And you just look at these. What I'm holding
from that distance that he doesn't recognize it, you can put it back in front of him. Don't hold it up for the jury, please.
May I?
Yes.
That appeared to be a thin cotton hoodie.
Yeah, that appears to be a thinner layer of clothing.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Not a heavy coat. Is that fair?
Fair.
Not a winter jacket.
Fair.
Is it fair to say?
I'm thinking it's because he stutters and stammers and all that stuff in between his speaking, like I do. Maybe that's why it doesn't like it, his voice, but I don't know.
You had a lot on your mind when you were out at that scene, correct?
In terms of just
saving a man's life.
Correct.
That's your credentials are impressive. You were there focused on one thing, and that is trying to make sure that a man did not die.
Correct.
Would you agree that that was your primary concern and your primary focus the entire time you were at the scene?
Correct.
You weren't necessarily worried about what other individuals were doing, correct?
No.
If I asked you right now off the top of your head, tell me exactly the number of law enforcement officers that were there at the scene, probably couldn't tell me, could you?
No.
If I asked you whether or not you remember every single civilian that was at the scene, probably couldn't tell me, correct?
Outside of the 3?
Outside of the 3?
Correct.
Any other civilians?
Not that I noted.
Okay. Matter of fact, you can't even identify the 3 civilians other than generally middle-aged, 40s, Caucasian female.
Correct.
You said all 3 of them sort of look alike, right?
Without the only defining feature on one of the individuals was one of the individuals did have blood on their face.
Some of the specifics of that scene, you didn't pay special note to, correct?
No, we were focused on patient care.
Is it fair to say that, specifically as it pertains to your memory might be a little faulty where that's concerned?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, nothing wrong with that. You were focused on something completely different.
Correct. Correct.
And you mentioned that once you got him into the back of the ambulance, you, as you put it, you had a quote unquote much better picture of what you were dealing with. Is that right?
Correct.
You testified at the grand jury that you noted that once he was in the back of the ambulance, under better lighting, you were able to tell that he had trauma to the right side of his head.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Are you talking about the major trauma that he suffered to the back of his head or the egg that you earlier described?
I was more just because it was directly in front of me. It was on the front side of his head.
Okay, so it wasn't the right side of his head. If you said right side of your head, you might point above your ear, right?
Correct,
That's not
yes.
where you're talking about.
I was, and if, to use my person, I would say right here. So more towards the right, above his right eye.
Right of center, but still on the front of his head.
Correct.
And you did not make any note of another injury on the back of his head.
No.
He seems so nervous.
You talked about the injuries to the right side of his arm, correct? Correct. You noted that those injuries appear to be scratches.
Yes.
That's your word, not mine, right?
Correct.
You didn't say that those were blunt force trauma.
No.
You didn't say that they were abrasions.
Scratches and abrasions, in my point of view, seem to go hand in hand.
But the word that you used was scratches.
Yes, they were like furrows down.
Say that again?
Furrows, if you will, for lack of a better term. Just
I don't understand that word.
So if you remove something,
Yes.
like you create a furrow in the skin, is that?
Furrows.
Yes, there you go. Sorry, excuse my accent.
Oh, no. I'm on your turf.
Fair enough.
It's my accent. I'm so sorry. Boy, that one.
He's just,
Could be a
yeah.
meme somewhere.
Hey, my cousin Vinny.
Yeah, got it. All right. So when you said furrows, you made your hand in almost like a claw and drug it against your right biceps.
Objection.
Sustained.
Can you repeat the movement that you did for the jurors when you said furrows?
Objection.
Sustained. Just move on to the next question, please.
Wow.
You would agree that a very common cause of a hematoma over one's eye is being hit or punched.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
You said that Mr. O'Keefe did have such a hematoma over his right eye, correct?
Yes.
Did you also see a laceration under the eyebrow but above the lid on his right eye?
I don't recall.
Did you see a laceration on Mr. O'Keefe's nose?
I don't recall.
You did note that there was some blood on his nose, correct?
Correct.
That possible that came from a small laceration.
Yes.
Fight
In your
wound?
experience,
Not
let
car
me ask
wounds.
another question. Did it look like he had, in addition to the egg on the right side of his head,
Mhm.
in the front, did it also have a black eye on the left side?
If memory serves correct, yes.
So both eyes were blackened.
Primarily the right side, if memory serves.
Okay. And the laceration for the right side
Yes.
of the right eye. Are those injuries that you just described consistent or inconsistent with some sort of physical altercation?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Next
Speculation,
question, please.
sustained.
Did it appear to you, just from your initial assessment, given your experience, training, and background, that those injuries looked like he had been in a fight?
Objection.
I'll see counsel at sidebar.
Oh my God, blow it out your ass, lady.
Thank you.
Sir.
Mr. LaPorte. In your experience as obviously a training firefighter, tell me the word again that you used.
Field training officer, or preceptor.
Thank you. As a field training officer, have you seen in your experience the product or the injuries that can be produced from fistfights? Yes. Okay.
Hey.
Injuries to the face.
Yes.
Injuries to the mouth. Injuries to the nose.
God.
To the ears.
Yep.
To the eyes. Defensive wounds on the hands.
Yes.
Did you note you've already talked about, I don't want to go over all this again. You've already noted what the injuries to the face were that you saw Mr. O'Keefe having suffered.
Yes.
Were those consistent or inconsistent with a physical altercation?
I couldn't say.
Were they consistent or inconsistent with being in a fight?
I couldn't say.
Was that egg over his right eye consistent or inconsistent with him having been punched or hit?
I couldn't say.
I thought you said that one of the common causes of an egg like that, a hematoma, as you put it, over someone's eye, is being hit or punched.
There's quite a few reasons that somebody could get an egg, such as that over their head there. I mean, you could get hit with a golf ball,
Of course.
for instance.
I'm not asking you to the exclusion of everything else.
Yeah.
I'm asking you, is it consistent?
It's consistent. It could be.
Okay. And the other injuries as well?
Correct.
Okay. Did you see bruising to the back of one or both of his hands?
His hands were, as stated, they were very cold and very white. They were not well perfused. And when you don't have adequate perfusion, swelling and smaller injuries don't typically present themselves, if you will.
So you may not have seen that.
Correct.
The bruising may have been there.
It might have been there. It just wasn't observable just due to the condition of his hands.
Just may have overlooked it.
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that you were not present when your colleague, Katie McLaughlin, was questioning anybody at the scene, correct? She was tasked with that responsibility, but you did not engage with her.
Correct.
Meaning, when I say engage with her, you weren't standing there with her.
No, I was in the back of the ambulance.
Where he's not an honest kid, Kevin.
You claim to have heard the statement, I hit him,
yes,
several times from the woman with blood on her face.
Correct.
You indicated that she was erratic.
Correct.
Hysterical.
Correct.
You said, for lack of a better term, running around in circles.
Yes.
She seemed despondent or distraught.
Very distraught.
Very upset.
Yes.
Was she saying anything else that you recall?
To me, I heard I hit him, and then I went back. Obviously, continue.
This is where he starts scrambling and scraping.
On patient care, focusing on patient care.
Did you hear her say, could I have hit him?
I heard I hit him.
That's what you believe at this point.
That's what I heard.
Okay. Where exactly were you?
I was crouching.
And who was doing what?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. You were asked a question when you spoke to her and she said, I hit him. Were you were you with me and asked that question by a grand juror?
I don't recall.
Do you remember answering
lighting patient around strokey.
And you were doing the airway, well, you called it Tony.
Yes, that's Anthony Tony, yes.
All right. He was doing the CPR, correct?
Correct.
And it's absolutely clear in your mind that when that statement was made, you were knelt down over Mr. O'Keefe. Flamati was doing CPR. Kelly was with you guys, and you posed the question to her, do you know him? Correct?
Correct.
Correct. So I want to make sure I understand this. You said, as you're knelt down, do you know him? Directly to the female. And she answered your question with, I hit him.
Yes.
But that's not what you told Trooper Proctor in a February 8th interview.
Okay. I don't recall what I told Trooper Proctor.
Let's start at the beginning.
Wow, did you have me, not her, Kevin? I mean, shit.
On February 8th.
I could use the $500, not her. She's paying for a $5 million defense. Just kidding.
That was obviously much closer in time than your grand jury testimony, correct?
Correct.
And years closer in time than your testimony now.
Correct.
Do you recall on February 8th,
just wait,
telling Trooper Proctor that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene?
To another female, as I stated, I heard several times I hit him. In terms of who that was directed towards, I mean, again, focused on patient care.
Understood. My question was a little bit different. Do you recall telling Trooper Proctor specifically that while you were rendering, the other female told Karen to be quiet?
I do recall that.
Okay. That's not what you testified to today, though.
Okay.
Matter of fact, that story has changed to you posed a question and she answered your question, correct?
Correct.
So which is it?
So when ventilating from bystanders, because as I'm ventilating, I can real quick look around. Do you know this individual? Do you know anything about this individual? That's fairly typical for any scenario in this. It's a very quick information gathering strategy.
But you'll agree that your testimony today has changed from what it was from your statement to Trooper Proctor on February 8th.
I don't know if it would so much say change, sir. To be honest, I don't fully recall that meeting with Mr. Proctor. I remember meeting with him. However, I don't fully remember what was discussed.
So it's fair to say that your memory is a little bit faulty as it pertains to that time frame.
Absolutely.
Okay. Wow. If you forget then, how can you remember now?
When you went to the hospital with a patient, did you ever inform any of the doctors or nurses or medical professionals at the hospital that you had heard a female claim to have hit John O'Keefe, and that's the reason for his injuries?
I did not give the report to the hospital.
So the answer to that is no.
No.
As a first responder and a medical professional yourself, obviously you know that the cause and manner of the victim's injuries are incredibly important as it pertains to assessing how to treat that patient.
Correct.
That station and say, I hit him, and that's the cause and manner of the injuries.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know if you wrote a report that said that.
Correct.
And you did not.
I did not write the patient care report.
Okay. At any time that day or any day subsequent thereto, did you contact the Canton Police Department, which were the first responders?
I did not.
Say,
I did not.
did you ever, on that day or any day subsequent thereto, contact the Massachusetts State Police and say, I heard this person say I hit him?
I did not.
So the first time with Trooper Proctor.
Correct.
And by the time we've come full circle to today, that statement has now pivoted.
In terms,
You didn't you didn't overhear the person say it to a female. Now she's talking directly to you now.
she spoke directly to me, yes.
Have you, just one last point. You've obviously noted that this case has gotten an enormous amount of notoriety, correct?
Correct.
How many times would you say that you've discussed this case and this incident with your fellow firefighters?
It's brought up around the station semi-frequently. However, being involved in it, we try to stay clear of it just because we are involved in it.
So the answer is, there've been many discussions.
Yes.
Probably daily.
Frequently.
Have any of those discussions helped you with what you earlier described as a little bit of a faulty memory around that time frame?
Objection, Your Honor.
He can have that. Have they?
Repeat the question for me, sir.
Sure. Have any of those discussions helped you with what you earlier described as a little bit of a faulty memory?
The memories that I have and the ones that I'm bringing up, I don't believe that they've changed. You know, I played them over in my head to the best of my ability, and I don't believe my story is swayed. If they've been enunciated incorrectly on my part, that it wasn't intentional.
Understood.
Yeah.
And nobody's casting aspersions. Yeah. Memory's a funny thing. So your memory is as good about that as it is about that winter coat.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. That's all I have.
Mr. Lally?
He's like, thank God that's over.
Mr. Nuttall, when it comes to you being asked about as far as different injuries that you observed on Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Rephrase that for me.
Poorly phrased on my part. So you would have been asked on cross-examination about some things that the injuries you observed on Mr. O'Keefe could be considered other causality, or how many myriad of other sort of things could have also been a cause of the injuries that you observed?
As stated, a lot. It's not typically just physical altercations. It could be, again, a golf ball could hit you in the head. That could cause similar injuries.
And just for clarity purposes, when you were asked about a particular time frame, were you talking about the time frame of January 29th, or were you talking about the time frame of February 8th when you met with Trooper Proctor?
Sorry, sir. Rephrase that for me.
Let me withdraw that and move on to something else. So what, just again, for clarity purposes, when you were asked about some statements that were attributed to you to Trooper Proctor during it, correct?
Correct.
And so with regard to what you recall differently, is it the statement that the person, the female with the blood on her face, made to you, or the statement of the other female telling that person to be quiet?
So as stated, real quick, down and dirty, I asked, do you know this person? To which I hit him. And then in the background, I remember hearing over and over, I hit him. That was kind of pushed towards the back, and patient care took priority, if that answers your question.
Do you recall specifically at this time the other statement that you were asked about as far as whether or not the other female told that female to be quiet?
I do remember that, correct.
And the other statement as far as the female with blood on her face, and again, that was the differentiating character between two females that you observed there, correct?
Correct.
And your memory of that statement is, I hit him, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Nuttall, you are all set, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Do you have another witness, Mr. Lally, to start?
Yes, sir. Your Honor, the Commonwealth will call Mr. Anthony Flamati to the stand.
will you bring me a drink?
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case now and hearing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Good afternoon.
Name is last name spelled F-L-E-M-A-T-T-I.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a acting lieutenant at this time for the Canton Fire Department.
And how long in total have you worked for the Canton Fire Department?
Got hired in 2015, July 2015, so coming up on 10 years.
And
Make sure you don't
prior to
fall
working
over
with
this
the Canton
time,
Fire Department,
please.
what, if any, other work did you have within sort of the same?
2012, March 2012 until July of 2015. So just transfer departments.
And even prior to working with the Eggsville Fire Department, did you work as an EMT?
What?
Yep. So I work in Field and Holyoke.
What?
Worked for Fenn Ambulance. Started basic level of EMT around 2008, and then just different private ambulance companies around the state.
And just starting with the EMT side of it for the first, what if any training did you receive or education did you receive prior to getting your certification as an EMT?
There's different levels of certifications for EMTs. The EMT basic starts out with about 6 months, a couple nights a week for about, like I said, about 6 months. Take a certification, practical, and written examination for that to get your basic level, and then you move on to the paramedic level of schooling as well.
Can you describe for the jury a little bit about sort of what that paramedic level of schooling is?
So the paramedic schooling starts, it's about 12 to 14 months, depends on the program, which school you go to. Night school,
Oh, can we
2 to 4 times a
skip
week
past this bullshit?
for about 14 months, and then you start going into a clinical phase where you
Blah,
go into
blah,
the different
blah.
operating
Okay,
rooms.
cool. Yeah,
You do
we
about
can get
300
on
hours of
to
education in that. Once you've completed a bunch of skill checkoffs under the supervision of an RN or a doctor, depending on the room, you would then clear that section of your schooling
to
skills,
all their
what you need
credentials.
that would be either in a fire department or a private EMS under the preceptorship of a senior paramedic that would kind of walk you through how to do the job and shadow you and supervise that you're doing things
Well, obviously
appropriately.
you don't
that
know
for
how
about
to
200
do
or
the
300
job.
hours. You write up different documentation, basically learning how to do it out of the clinical set and then more in the field set. After that, you would, whatever job you have at that point, you would do an additional practical assessment again, of 6 or 7 different stages of Massachusetts to certify you as a paramedic. Then after that, they have another 2 to 6 month preceptorship within the department to acclimate you to the physical location that you're working in.
And so there's a written portion and a practical portion, yes, both the EMT as well as the paramedic training?
Yes, that's correct.
And you successfully completed that and received certifications in regards to both?
Yes.
And those certifications, are they something that is just sort of a one-time blessing, or is that something that has a continuing educational component and recertification?
That's correct. So every 2 years, we have to do a 48-hour refresher classes that the national standard holds us to. So it covers different topics that they mandate that we cover every 2 years.
And your certification is up to date at this point, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you're currently a lieutenant within the Canton Fire Department, is that correct?
Yes.
And how long have you been, have you had the rank?
I'm a temporary acting lieutenant, so I've been that since, I believe it was February, up till this time.
Fire station or firehouses do you have in Canton?
So we have 2 different stations, headquarters and Station 2.
Other one.
That we operate of. So as a firefighter, we rotate through the different positions, or different stations. As a lieutenant, I'm the lieutenant right now at Station 1, so headquarters.
And where is Station 1 located?
99 Revere Street.
And with respect to each of the 2 station houses, how many sort of different vehicles and apparatus are located in?
So we have, depends on what's obviously in service for mechanical issues and stuff, but we have a primary engine, a backup engine. We try to have at each station 2 primary ambulances and then a backup ambulance as well. So we try to have at least 1 engine, 1 ambulance, 1 ladder at each station, and then we'll have the backup.
And Station 2, where is that located?
7 Mont Street.
Now, as far as the sort of shift, how many people are assigned to, when you're assigned to, let me ask you this first. when you have a shift, what hours is that shift sort of?
24-hour shifts. We'd have a 24 period off from work, another 24, and then we're off for 5 days.
And when you're assigned to a certain shift for that 24-hour period, are you assigned to sort of a specific duty or a truck, or how does that work?
We're usually just assigned to a specific position for either the 10-hour or the 14, depending on rotations, overtime, that kind of stuff. But we're usually assigned to an individual piece or individual position for that shift, at least, whether it's a day shift or the whole 24.
And so starting with just the ambulance, if you're assigned to the ambulance, how many people and what are the different roles in the ambulance?
So the ambulance through seniority or through care level, whether paramedic, EMT, if you're both paramedics, then we go by seniority and swap back and forth for call volume and teching, who's in charge of the call. And then we would also cross-man with the ladder as well. So depending on the call that comes in for service, we would either, on a fire call, we could take the ladder, medical call, we could take the ambulance.
And with respect to the engine, how is that sort of divvied up, or what are the different roles on an engine?
So with the engine, if we have a full staff of 13 members, we would have 4 people on the engine. If there's a couple people off vacation, that type of thing, we could do, it's the driver, the step, and then the lieutenant in charge of the engine.
Now, if I could turn your attention to January 28th, into the evening of January 28th into the morning of January 29th, were you working on that occasion?
Yes.
Okay, you're working 8 a.m. on the 28th until 8 a.m. on the 29th, is that correct?
That's correct.
And which firehouse were you working out of on that occasion?
I believe it was Station 1 at the time.
And what was your assignment in relation to that shift, whether it was ambulance, truck, or engine, whatever?
That would have been ambulance 1.
And who, if anyone else, was assigned to ambulance 1 along with you?
We have a lot of similar names.
And what, if any, disparity was there between sort of the experience that you had versus the experience Mr. Kelly had at that time?
So Mr. Kelly had just started with the department at the BLS level at the EMTB, probably 2 or 3 months prior. I had just finished up his preceptorship, getting him onboarded as a new hire in EMT, so very minimal experience at that time.
So fair to say any sort of medical calls, you would have been sort of what they call the lead paramedic, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, with reference to that particular time frame, the 28th, 29th, what, if anything, were you aware of as far as sort of weather, forecast, that kind of thing?
So leading into that shift, I knew there was a storm coming, and I had always lived a good distance away from work. So I would try and tie overtime shifts in so I wouldn't have to commute more than once back and forth. But with the storm coming, wanted to not have to drive into the weather. So I picked up overtime the night before that shift.
And about what time did you arrive the night before?
The night before I arrived at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is the start of the shift.
And so you were essentially on shift for relatively significant period of time leading into the morning of the 29th, correct?
That's correct.
And
exactly as predicted. We hadn't gotten much snow up until about midnight, or no developed since pretty much then on.
And in a moment, I'm going to ask you about a call around 6 a.m. But just if I could take you back a little bit, what did you say after midnight but prior to 6 a.m.?
I don't believe so. I don't recall how many calls were prior to that. That one was kind of the key of the night.
So you mentioned sort of what, if any, memory do you have as far as like sort of when it started to snow?
It would have been after 10 p.m. for sure, but I'm not sure exactly.
Now, turning your attention to a little bit after 6 a.m., you get a dispatch for a medical call, correct?
Correct.
And just prior to that, what about time did you sort of get up, rise, and sort of, start doing things around the station that day?
So shift change usually happens around 8 a.m. in the morning. It takes a while to get everything ready for normal business hours. We try and get the station prepped for public that come into the building or just people passing, going around. We try to prepare the sidewalks, the apron. So we get up around 5:30, if depending on call volume throughout the night. Sometimes we're up throughout the whole night. But we got up that morning around 5 to shovel, snow blow, salt the public walkways, that type of thing.
And specifically when it comes to the apron, that's sort of the area in front of the garage doors, is that correct?
That's right.
And so why is it so important to sort of clear off the apron as far as snow is concerned?
Yeah, so as far as in front of the apparatus doors, it's a very limited height clearance between the top of the fire apparatus and the actual garage bay doors. So a few inches of snow would be enough to cause us to bump into the ceiling of the apparatus garage doors. So we have to keep that relatively almost bare to be able to pull the apparatus out without causing any damage.
And about what time was it
Yeah,
that
the
that
snow.
you and the other firefighters at your
You're gonna
station,
hear it
started to
1,500
sort of clear off
times,
the
Kevin.
parking lot, the apron, or anything else as far as snow?
I'd say about 5:15, 5:30.
And at the time that you get this call, shortly after 6 a.m., about how much snow was on the ground at that point, if you know?
Oh my God, shut
Probably
up.
4 to 6 inches.
Anyways, just a brief break from the snow talk. I was gonna watch day 2 and 3 all in one day, but since I'm having speed control, issues with the what do you call it, going in and out, I figure I'll do 3 tomorrow instead. I was trying to crush it out, crush them out when they're not full days, but yeah, so because of the sound issue and stuff, I'm gonna see if this other damn what do you call it, this other browser works tomorrow. If not, then F all the dumb stuff, because I don't want to have to like make people wait while I guess I could put on music, huh? Why I do it. I'll see how I'm feeling in a second.
And you dispatched.
So we didn't have much information going out the door, just that there was a man on the side of the road. And we do the weather, there could be a
second. When it comes to when you're outside sort of shoveling off the apron and clearing some of the parking lot, in addition to the snow, what, if anything else, did you note as far as sort of weather conditions, visibility, things like that?
So
oh my
visibility
Lord.
with temperature probably in the 20s with still actively snowing at that time.
In the winds, to the best of your recollection, was this something that was just sort of a gust? Or was it sort of
Sustained winds and then probably gusts as well.
Probably the same time. I don't know. Maybe I could do I don't know.
You, I'm presuming, get in the ambulance and go, correct?
Correct. Myself,
Well,
Matthew Kelly,
probably the same time, Kevin, as I did tonight.
and firefighter Nuttall had come in early as well to try and beat storm and get in on time, because he was scheduled to come in at 8 a.m. that morning anyways. But with the heavy snow, wanted to make sure he could get in and be able to relieve it.
And within the ambulance, where was everybody sort of situated on route to the call?
I believe
All right.
Matthew Kelly was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and Nuttall was in the back of the truck.
What, if anything, did you note as far as sort of the road conditions, visibility as you were driving?
So that neighborhood is actually relatively close to the station, so normally it was slow driving over there. So I remember going pretty slow to get over to the scene.
And as far as this particular time of day, had the thing like that?
Sun had not come up yet. It was still dark, heavy winds, heavy snow. So visibility was almost zero.
Station were dispatched to this call as well at the same time.
So the other call would have been, or the other vehicle would have been engine 3, and just engine 3. Car 5 will sometimes go. That's the shift commander for the department, depending on the nature of the call, how it comes in, and the ambulance. So
Hello? Oh. That's not me, it's this. I was like, hello. Hello. It'll come back. Hold on.
and radio messages are sent. That's all documented on a third party that documents timestamps, things like that. As far as on scene, transport, clear from the hospital, that type of thing. It's all third party documented.
May I approach the witness room?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 160.
See, they all be innocent until they get the cross examination, and then they don't recall and all this other stuff.
Page and ask you to direct your attention to the far right. See that portion of the report, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
But
First
when
and
the
foremost,
girl
please
gets on the
go to
stand,
160. That's your report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And on that right,
the girl paramedic, ooh wee, boy, oh boy, that's when it kind of gets spicy.
column of the 7th page in, what if anything do you
6 en route time 6:07, on scene 6:14, at patient arrived at destination at the hospital 6:45.
And that destination hospital would have been Good Samaritan Medical Center, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, if you could, going back to sort of your dispatch from Station House to Fairview Road, can you describe sort of the path as far as what route you took to go from one to the other?
Yep. So from Revere Street, we would have come out, taken a right onto Revere Street, gone to the end of that road, taken a left on Sherman, driven all the way up to Chapman Street, taken a right on Chapman Street, gone up to Fairview Street, and then taken a left on that. And that would have brought us down to the address.
And as you're coming down Fairview, are you familiar with that area?
Yes.
No.
And so as you're coming down Fairview, is there any kind of grade or elevation to the roadway as you're coming down?
Yep. So that is a downhill towards about halfway down the road. So a pretty good grade that's coming downwards.
And the address that you responded to with 34 Fairview Road, when you're coming from the direction that you were coming off of Chapman, is that a residence that's on your left or right or something?
Been on the left.
And when you arrive on scene, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatus?
There's another vehicle, bystander vehicle, that was on scene as well. Don't recall if police were on scene at that time, but.
And when you first sort of pull up to the scene, what if any?
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a test. I'm going to come back after this is over. I'm going to come back in like 5 minutes and do a test to see if this other browser will work, because I'm at my wit's end right now. Like I'm sick and tired of this crap.
So as we're pulling up the scene, we see 2 female parties, non-uniformed personnel, that were going between the body and side of the street and back and forth. Looked like appeared to be a female party that was pushing on his chest and then going back and forth between the other female party and the patient.
And again, so when you first sort of pull up, you're able to see the body on the ground, is that correct?
It was, yes, you could see a body, but it was very.
And do you recall any sort of like overhead or ambient lighting, street lighting or anything like that illuminating in that area?
I don't recall.
Now, this individual, as far as the person on the ground, at some point you were able to subsequently identify who that was, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, who did you identify?
So identification won't normally happen right at that bedside. That's not really relevant to initial. We found out it was a search once interventions had started.
On scene, fair to say you're primarily your own sort of concerned with patient care, correct?
Yeah, correct.
The point is sort of tunnel vision to the patient, correct?
Yeah.
So you arrive on scene and you get out of the ambulance, and where is it that you go?
So we then go grab all of the equipment that we're going to need to work on the patient, and then we bring that equipment over to the patient side to be able
to Lally.
Jurors, that's it for today. We're not in session tomorrow. Remind you, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or
Blah, blah,
investigation.
blah. The system, blah. All right. Thank you, everybody that came and joined me. This guy is fine. Yeah, just wait. You just wait, Kevin. Tomorrow, you just wait. Anyways, they're fine. They're fine. You mean the going through? Well, when I watched it, it sounded all functified. I don't know. I'm still gonna try this other browser and see if it still messes up for me. If it doesn't, then I'll just stick with this one. But I don't know. Should I still go Should I really do 2 and 3? Oh, I guess you want to leave. All right. Thank you for coming by. I will test it out and see what goes on. So I will be back in like 5 minutes. But thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. Let the ones you love and care about know that you love and care about them, because tomorrow's not promised. Everybody have a blessed night and stay blessed.
Turn me up, AV.
Put your eyes on me, yeah, like the spotlight. Recognize me showing love, then got my grind right. Ain't never since day one the love been on side. And since you got my back, I got your back for life. Yeah, pretty honesty. Know just what it is, I got it on me. And you hold me down, you like my homie. Just know I got you, dog, just what it gon' be. Definition of bestie, definition of friendship, definition of rider, definition relentless. She's a strong woman, she's a sweet lady, she's a great mother, let your pain get achy. Yeah, I made that girl on YouTube, she never dims my light or put me in her dark mood. And I thank you, you appreciate, you're my favorite girl on YouTube, and I can't fake it. You still got faith in me, make me feel like big. DJ Khaled voice, pretty hot. Who still got faith in me, make me feel like big. DJ Khaled voice, pretty hot. Yeah. Met a little shawty on this show called BDP, you know what I'm talking about? Shit. We been cool ever since, my nigga, you know what I'm talking about? Put your eyes on me, yeah, like the spotlight. Recognize me showing love, then got my grind right. Ain't never since day one the love been on side. And since you got my back, I got your back for life. Yeah, pretty honesty. Know just what it is, I got it on me. And you hold me down, you like my homie. Just know I got you, dog, just what it gon' be.